Welcome to the meeting of the Conservation Commission for the evening of Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. The time is just after 6 p.m. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allow, the Conservation Commission will continue to hold meetings remotely. Adequate alternative access to the meetings is provided through the Zoom link. As always, please continue to check the city's calendar, the meeting agendas, and other sites for the Zoom login information and call-in information. And we will start off with a roll call of commissioners. Member Charpentier.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Gradwell.
Here.
Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Viteri.
Here.
Member Gullah. And Member Jackson.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum present.
Okay, we'll open it up with an administrative briefing. Chuck, do you have anything to contribute to the administrative briefing?
We do have these several projects that are continuing. Most of them are in the first continued business section. But for those folks that are on, we'll be continuing NOI 0282929 for 156 Atlantic Street. NOI 0282931 30 Grapevine Road. NOI 0282884 for 284 Atlantic Road. And NOI 0282947 for 50 Raleigh Shore. All of those will be continued to future dates. So if you're here for those, you can stick around for the dates that those will be continued to, or feel free to check the future agendas.
Okay, next up we have public comment. This is the opportunity for members of the audience to comment on environmental issues of interest to the Conservation Commission that are not on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to do so?
We currently have 24 attendees. I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to minutes review and approval. For the minutes of August 16th, 2023, I will entertain a motion to approve as amended if everyone has had a chance to go over them. If not, please speak up now.
Charpentier moves to approve the minutes of August 16th, 2023.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes, as amended. Okay. Next up, we have continued business. NOI 0282929, 156 Atlantic Street, estate of Eileen M. Sheehan, for construction of a single-family home, utilities and septic and riverfront buffer zone to coastal resource area and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Benjamin Minnick, Eagle Brook Engineering and Survey, LLC. This will be continued to the meeting of September 20th, if we can have such a motion.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282929 156 Atlantic Street to the meeting of September 20th.
And Gradwell second.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Next up, we have NOI 0282931 at 30 Grapevine Road, Rob Cullinane, for addition to single-family home, new garage with living space, relocation of shed, and installation of a pervious driveway in buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. Represented by Rob Cullinane, who has requested to continue to September 20th, 2023.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282931 at 30 Grapevine Road to the meeting of September 20th.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes. Next up, we have NOI 0282884 at 284 Atlantic Road, Stephen Klaus, for construction of a retaining wall in existing yard and removal of a deteriorated field stone wall in Coastal Bank, Coastal Beach, and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Garrett M. Tunison of Tunison Environmental Consultants, LLC, who will also be continued to September 20th.
Actually, they've requested to continue to October 4th.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282884 at 284 Atlantic Road to the commission meeting of October 4th.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Next up, we have NOI 0282948, excuse me, at 84 Denison Street, Jason Brooks for invasive species removal and grass plantings in previously cleared parking area in riverfront area, buffer zone to coastal resource area, and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Jason Brooks. Do we have Mr. Brooks here?
Yes, he should be promoting now to panelist. Mr. Brooks, we could turn on your, oh, there you go.
You hear me?
We can.
Oh, I see you came back from the islands.
Jason Brooks, 84 Denison Street, Gloucester, for the record.
Okay, if you could tell us where you are on the project. I know we were waiting for a report from your arborist.
Yep, so I have prepared a deck slide. I don't know, Chuck, do you want me to share? I don't even know if I'd be able to figure that out, or you- So yeah, since the last meeting, I met with a few of you members. I also met with my surveyor and then multiple arborists who share very similar evaluations on the health of the trees. So in these upcoming slides, I'm just going to go over kind of what the arborist and I have discussed. At the moment, I do not have a letter. Is that something that you guys are interested in?
Yes, it is. We will
Okay.
need documentation.
So he's away in another country for his daughter's wedding. So he's gonna work on getting me that, and I'll get that over to Chuck as soon as I have that. But
That'd be terrific.
stated that nothing was immediately impacted by the clearing of this land, but he has recommended some actions to further improve the health of the area. I'm gonna touch on those in the upcoming slides, but the first thing we discussed, it does make sense to clear the invasive bittersweet vines and the invasive Japanese knotweed throughout these images. Here we have a survey of my land. Something we discussed in the prior meeting and on site was trying to get a number on how much land was cleared. So here you can see there was 3,300 square feet within the 200-foot riverfront buffer zone that was cleared. This also is showing a tree on the right-hand side that a neighbor had concerns about whether or not the tree was on their property or my property, and whether or not I crossed any landlines when clearing the land. The tree is on my property, and as you can see, I did not clear any land on her property. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Additionally, before I move to the health of the trees, I also provided a video. I didn't share it here in these slides, but something of concern was drainage issues, and the video was subsequent to the last meeting where we had a pretty heavy rainstorm. I believe it was the Friday after the meeting, and it demonstrates the water is strictly coming from South Bennett Street. So here on these slides, this is kind of moving counterclockwise, beginning on the right-hand side. The tree on the left-hand side, the image on the left-hand side, again, no immediate concerns from the arborist due to my work, but he recommends bringing back the mound of soil that we'll see on the next slide to recreate the original grade alongside of these trees and around the roots. Chuck, you mind going to the next slide? The image on the left-hand side would be that tree that was of concern of the neighbor. Again, no immediate concerns expressed from the arborist. No roots were exposed, but just to help the health of the tree in the future, again, we're gonna return the mound of dirt, which you can see on the image to the right, to regrade to the original state. The arborist also has recommended pruning to remove scaffolding and invasive to decrease the wind and resistance on this tree. So it'd be pruning branches on that tree to reduce wind resistance that would help the health of the tree and decrease any potential future issues with that tree. The next slide is going to be the trees that are in the center of the location. So these trees are currently healthy, but the regrading that I did expose the roots, and that may have an effect on them in the future. But I mean, the tree did pick a harsh place to grow near granite ledge, but initial course of the action, arborist is recommending to make a tree bed surrounding the trees with soil and edging with stone to help save them. He says welling around the root flare will benefit from the tree's vigor by conserving moisture and managing heat radiated to roots during dry weather. Go to the next slide. So now this is kind of the back left corner in the left side of the area. Let me see. In the image on the right hand side, there's a large tree that was not affected by my ongoings, but the tree was dead prior to the work, and we would like to remove that as a safety precaution, of course, with your approval. Then the remaining trees here, other than the invasive species, there was no harm to them. He has no concerns over those. Then the next slide would be kind of the front area. Again, we're gonna regrade the dirt back off of these trees. There was no harm to these trees. He said that blackberry trees can withstand harsh conditions around their basal trunk and roots. But yeah, as a precaution, we're just gonna regrade to optimize growing conditions. So I guess in summary, on the next slide, again, the plan will be to remove all invasive bittersweet vines, remove the single dead tree in the back left corner that was dead prior to the work, continue to cut the invasive Japanese knotweeds to eventually eliminate so that we can do some mitigation, regrade the back right corner, and then regrade the back right corner into the right side, and then regrade inside the front back into the land, prune the large pine tree, and create a tree bed with soil and rocks around those center trees. That's my summary. I guess my questions for you guys ultimately would be, are you giving me approval to perform these actions, the arborist would be the one performing the actions. Can I mow the invasive Japanese knotweeds and the grass down there just to maintain its image in the meantime? Can I park cars and boats down there yet? Specifically boats, as that's generally what I park down there. And summer is coming to a close here. Ultimately, no trees were harmed or killed, as they are all savable per the arborist, or were already dead. I understand that I disturbed the area, and we're comfortable using a portion of the left-hand side for native mitigation plants, and willing to discuss with you guys the appropriate amount. My initial thought is to, at this point, utilize it for something. So I would like to plant some native fruit or some kind of planting that's edible, so that there's some benefit in the end out of this for me.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. You know the routine. We're now going to open this up for public comment, and members of the audience will have an opportunity to comment. And then we will go through commissioner and agent comments, at which point you can respond to everything.
Yep.
I'll open up this, what is it, 84 Denison Street for public comment. If there is any member of the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 84 Denison Street, please raise your hand or dial *9 on your smart device.
38 attendees, and there's currently one hand up. Nina Quinlan.
Okay, hi, Nina Quinlan, 79 Denison Street. Let's see. I have a bunch of notes from last time. I just want to touch on a couple of things. I'm not sure I heard Jason right, but I think he said there was absolutely no other additional water that was being emitted onto Denison Street from his property, that it was all coming from Bennett. I can't argue that the lion's share of the water is not coming down from Bennett. It is, but there is additional water I see seeping from his project. When I go by there, I have not had the chance yet to photograph it, but it's not like there's none. It's just not. There is a contributing amount. I wouldn't say it's necessarily huge, but that's not for me to say or measure what the impact of that may or may not be down the road. I didn't see any slides just now. Did I miss them, of those trees in the middle that I'm real concerned about? And we all discussed a little bit last time, that had the 3 to 4 feet of piled up dirt around their trunks. I imagine that's part of the project to take care of that and bring that dirt back down somehow and add dirt to level it out. I don't know, but just to not have those trees get compromised. Let's see. Okay, so I understand the professional arborist came in, and you all did a site visit. Is that right?
It was a site visit, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Last time we all got together on this, a number of the commissioners expressed a number of things they'd like to see, some of which I didn't hear mentioned tonight. So I'm just wondering, the professional arborist did come in, but one of the commissioners was calling for perhaps a professional engineer for drainage to come in. I don't know if anything like that was done. Let's see, we discussed all of this. Two different commissioners last time spoke to the nearness to the riverfront and whether or not the regulations even permit such a project as this close to the riverfront to take place. I didn't hear anything tonight about that being visited or explored and how that fits in. Second commissioner said something about showing the footage of the cleared area to calculate that in terms of riverfront regulations and performance standards. I didn't hear anything about that tonight. Let's see. Okay, that's nearly it. It still seems a great deal larger than sort of seems to suit the area and what's practical for the needs that have been expressed. And that's pretty much it. I'll just mention as an aside something that's not really a conservation issue, but I'll only mention it because when this all began, the very first thing that Jason expressed was the reason for wanting to have this large area for parking, which he said was, you know, for the snow and the boat and whatnot. But I have to mention there have been a number of significant social events. We're talking 50 cars or so here. We're talking a stage, we're talking speakers, we're talking that kind of stuff going on. And it's been repeated. So just as an aside to make sure that the purpose is not for sort of that sort of thing, which doesn't seem like a regular neighborhood kind of activity, but truly for boat and snow cars and that sort of thing. So that is what I have. Oh, I didn't have a chance to talk with her. Maybe it's covered, Jason, by what you already showed us tonight, but I didn't know if Maria had had a chance to actually see the summary. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Another hand up, Helene Dion.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
So
Name and address for the record, please.
my apologies. My name is Hélène Dion, and I am at 75 Denison Street, just across the street from Jason's driveway. So I'm glad to hear that most of the trees seem to be either not affected or redeemable, or, you know, I was also a little bit confused. I need to, as whether the one in the middle there, that was of great concern, maybe that was addressed by Jason, but I was not quite clear about what was said about that one. You know what I mean, Jason, the one in the middle, that's kind of, so that I would like to hear again about that. I'm also, I certainly do agree that most of the water comes from Bennett Street. It does seem to me that it's not the only source of it, and that what Jason has done has affected some, though maybe in changing the grade back to, you know, what it used to be and planting some more, and maybe it will compensate for that. But I just wanted to say that it didn't seem to me that that Bennett Street was the only source either, although certainly I agreed with Jason that it is most important source. One question I had, and this is really probably not of I know that there was a whole bunch of rocks that he was asked to put in to as a first step to kind of protect, like, I think, as I understand it, in terms of water. And I did not know if it was meant to stay there. Jason and I had a conversation that may not, I mean, I think it's more from the aesthetic, you know, does grass work as well as rocks? I don't know. And I realized that that's not the most, what's most important is that we protect the environment. But that was a question that I wanted to raise, just from the aesthetic part of it. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Chuck, do we have anyone else?
There are 31 attendees and no other hands are up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll go to commissioner comments. And in those comments, if you would please consider, in addition to what else you would like to say, Mr. Brooks's questions. The first one is, do you give approval for these actions that he has enumerated? My feeling on that is not until we get complete documentation, and we don't have that yet. His other questions: can they mow the grass and the invasive rock Japanese knotweed? Can they park their cars and boats? And then again, once the invasive species are under control, can they use an area for planting. I think we need to make the first and the last questions decisions once we receive documentation. But if we could talk about whether they could mow the grass or park yet, I'd appreciate it. Go ahead.
So Member Charpentier.
I don't see any harm in parking cars there. And, certainly we need that report. But I also want to thank Jason for all the work he's done. I think that it looks like a very solid plan. And I'd like to see this move along.
Member Cook.
Yeah, then again, I'd like to thank Jason for the work that he's done. I think as far as the drainage and stuff, I think Dennison Street, Jason's driveway, every neighbor's driveway, everybody in that neighborhood contributes to the issues that they're facing. I feel that the work that was done in there is probably minimal impact to that. So I'd like to move this along as quickly as we can. I think he's addressed the issues that we've asked him to address. And I don't have any other issues.
Member Gradwell.
I agree with the other two, and I think it's time to move on.
Member Sargent.
I want to thank you for a meaningful site visit, and I'm looking forward to reading the recommendations from a certified arborist. I don't think too much work should move forward until we've had a chance to review and read that. Thank you.
Member Thierry.
Yeah, I'd echo the statements about thanking Jason for all his work. You put a lot more into this proposal than was there before, and I think you're close to getting it in a place where we can approve it. I'm glad. Thank you for getting the measurements from the square footage. I think that my big concern was whether or not you'd be above this 5,000 square foot threshold. Under the wetlands regs, we can allow an alteration up to 5,000 square foot in a riverfront area, provided that there's 100-foot wide area of undisturbed vegetation. That's supposed to come off the river. I know there's another property in a house and a road between you and the riverside, but I think part of that area could be addressed with mitigation plantings. The other criteria, DEP stormwater standards are followed. I'll get back to that. No impairment of wildlife habitat, no impairment of groundwater or surface water quality. Again, I think some mitigation plantings, I think, will address those conditions. So the only thing that left for me is sort of whether the DEP stormwater standards are followed. I think that's a concern that's shared by the abutters and I think some of the commissioners here. So I'd like a little more analysis into that. But other than that, I think there is a solid ground for approving the plan with those, as you laid out, with some additional mitigation going. And in terms of, I guess my final question is in terms of the need for the project, I'd like to also see kind of how many cars and boats need to be parked there to accommodate your tenants and yourself, and see if you can tailor the final parking area to fit kind of that size and, not too much more. If the purpose is for your tenants to park and for you to park a boat, that's, I think, what the work that should be approved in the final area of disturbance that should be approved.
Member Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Brooks, for all of the work you put in. That has clarified a lot of issues for us, and it's very much appreciated. One housekeeping comment. We've gone back and forth on whether this is redevelopment, whether it's expansion, new expansion, and I do think you've explained to us very thoroughly why you could not put this parking area somewhere else less impactful. Could we have that in writing, please, so that we can vote on an alternatives analysis? It is insufficient to simply say we can't put it anywhere else. You have to explain why you can't put it anywhere else. So if you could put that in writing for us, we would appreciate that. I think that's probably the last bit of homework. We do need to have the arborist report. And I wasn't clear, well, I'm going to have Chuck talk, and I wasn't clear on who was okay with mowing the grass and parking the boats. I also would like to know how many boats and cars you plan on parking on a regular basis there. Chuck, do you have comments to add to this?
Sure. I guess as far as the stormwater goes, this is not a commercial, it's a single family home lot. So I don't know that the stormwater standards would be required for this project. Based on what I saw, I tend to agree that that I didn't see any evidence of any soil or any sediment kind of coming off the site, and I don't, there's no pervious surface areas going in, so there's no increase in impervious surface areas. I don't know that there's a real increase of any water coming from the site than was already happening. As far as the mowing and the removal of knotweed, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I would just recommend knotweed can grow from cut stems, so be very careful where you place it. Make sure it's disposed of properly. Sometimes people pile it up and kind of let it compost, and make sure you're not making the problem worse somewhere else by chopping it one place and taking that material to another location. Yeah, I guess that's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Brooks, would you like to respond to the questions that were raised?
I mean, from you guys' standpoint, I will definitely get in writing a letter from my arborist summarizing what I touched on today. I will also put in writing why there was no other area for me to do it, as well as I'll couple that with my plans for where within the area and how many whatever cars and boats I foresee ever needing to be parked in there at once. I'll write that all in one letter. Disposing of the knotweed when mowing. Thanks for the insight there. Definitely will make sure I'm getting rid of it, or else I guess, yeah, I would have probably just cut it and left it there, and it wouldn't go away, so we wouldn't solve anything. So that was good insight, Chuck. Thank you. I think that kind of touches on everything you guys had. I mean, from the standpoint of the neighbors, I know they both had concerns about the water. You guys have touched on that. They had concerns about the trees in the middle. I did touch on that. That was on slide 6. We're gonna build a tree bed around the trees and edge it with stone. Some of the other questions I think you guys have touched on, the area not being permittable, me not showing the footage that was demonstrated in one of the slides and touched on. As far as the rock aesthetic, that's up to you guys, obviously, whether or not you'll ever want to allow me to pull those up. I don't feel strongly one way or another, but I understand the aesthetic. And then I guess the last one was me having a stage and speakers. Not really sure what we're talking about there. Also not sure how she would ever know, because my driveway is very extended. So that would mean she was trespassing on my land to find a stage. I've never had a stage on my land. I do have a very large family. My fiance has a very large family. We have family gatherings for holidays and whatnot. So yes, there is activity that goes up my hill. Believe that addresses everything.
Okay, the events are not a Conservation Commission issue.
Yeah.
So you will give us an alternatives analysis. You will give us the arborist report. And could you just tell us between now and the next meeting, roughly how many cars or what you're going to be parking in there?
Yeah, do you mind if I put that in the same letter as the alternative, or you want two separate letters? What do you want?
I'm just looking, if you want to use it for parking between now and the next meeting, we
Oh,
would just
okay.
like an idea of how heavily it's going to be used.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's 2 to 3 cars generally is at the moment. I mean, my tenant changes, but at the moment we have 2 cars ourselves, and she has 1 car at the moment. So I mean, if she
Okay.
leaves and the next tenant has 2 cars, that's kind of what I would be going for, is to address our cars. And then I guess if we ever had any guests like sleeping over for a night or something like that during the winter. But cars right now, yes, no. That wasn't my main concern. It was more with summer ending, can I tuck my boat back down there? So,
Okay, why don't we leave it with, say, a maximum of 4 cars until the next meeting?
yep.
And does that make sense? Does that give you enough? All right.
And is the boat fine?
How big is the boat? And will it interfere with any of the other work that you're doing?
I mean, ultimately, next meeting, let's just forget about it. It's not.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not. Yeah.
All right. It's only 2
And
weeks
end of
away.
summer we can revisit it when I'm pulling the
And
boat.
yeah, and fall boating is beautiful. Okay. All right, then we will give you those. And is there anybody on the commission who objects to letting him mow or park under those conditions? Is there anybody? I'm kind of going through you guys here to see. I'm
Nope.
seeing head shaking. All right. Okay, then we will let you do the mowing with the understanding that the knotweed will be taken off property, put in plastic bags, whatever needs to be done there. And parking, say, up to 4 cars, and we'll deal for the moment until the next meeting, until we get all this documentation. And then we can make final decisions. Does that work for you?
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, then you want to continue to September 20th?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Linda, would you like to take care of that for him?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282948 at 84 Dennison Street to the commission meeting of September 20th.
Gradwell seconds.
Oh, member Charpentier,
Yes,
Cook,
Yes,
Gradwell,
Yes,
member Sargent,
Yes,
member Terry,
Yes.
and member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, we'll see you in 2 weeks, sir.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
good night.
Thank you, and
Thank you,
thank you for the
Jason.
work. Okay, next up, we have RDA 1786 at 2 Lane Road, Denise Delaney, for installation of a patio and steps and in land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to salt marsh, represented by Dylan Wolnowitz at DW and Company Earthworks LLC.
Dylan should be promoted now, and we also have Philip Whitney.
Okay, and if you could give your name and address for the record and a summary of where we are in the project.
Sure. My name's Philip Whitney. The address we're working at is 2 Lane Road in Gloucester, and the company address is 78 Stanley Street in Beverly, Mass.
Okay,
And I sent Chuck over a drawing of the property with some color-coded areas, just so everyone could kind of understand what's currently there, the proposed increase in impermeable surface, and then all the green spaces, all areas we can plant. There's actually more. There's more that I didn't draw into that, but that is so in the red is what is currently, it's all granite, and it's patio and walkway, all granite. It's proposed to remove the granite rock, set a new grade, and then do pavers through all of the red. The increase in impervious area is the blue. The area that Chuck is kind of outlining now does not have anything over it. The other blue area, the square area, actually has a deck above it. And I actually went over there in the rain, and the water lands on the deck and actually doesn't even hit the patio because of how tight the boards are on the deck. So that area probably won't create much more runoff. I expect the area that's actually outside of the area of the deck space is only, it's 8 by 2 is my measurements. So, I mean, you do get a little bit of dripping, but if you have a heavy rain, it actually hits the deck that sits above that. And then the green is all areas that we can plant. And I do have a drawing with using blueberry bushes, using some Virginia rose, a whole bunch of plants that are all on the planting list to be able to be installed. And then if you wanted to see photos, I think photo 6, 8 all show the deck that's above the area where she would like to put that one. So that's one. That's the area on the as you enter the property, and then I think picture. Yeah. So then, yep, that one. So so you can see the. Go ahead. So there you go. That's a good representation. So you can see the deck that's above the proposed area for the new patio, and all of the area in front of that is that's where she wants to put, the customer wants to put all native species in there. So she actually, I know the only question is like big leaf hydrangea, you know, which ones, like oak leaf hydrangea I think is acceptable. And I actually think they look, oak leaf is probably one of the prettier ones for this area. So she proposes putting oak leaf hydrangea all along that area. Some roses up in there, you know, a whole bunch of other things that are on the list for being able to plant that are native. I actually think Chuck might have the drawing. I might have sent him that as well. Actually, no, I sent him that at some point. And the only change would be if something's not available. You know, plant sizes and how fast they come and go can kind of change pretty quickly. I source a lot of plants locally, but I use, you know, I use Corliss and Wolf Hill, but I also use Milliken plant, which is in New Hampshire, and they have, I mean, if they don't have it, no one has it. So I don't know if there's any questions that the commission has, or, oh, there was one thing. We had a question about any rare species of plants, and I had a guy who is a plant specialist that I know who works for Dodge Tree Service, Todd Crandall, come out. He didn't see anything that would be considered rare, and if I needed to get that, get a letter for that, I could. But even in the photos, there's nothing that I see in those photos that we've submitted that shows that would be fall in that rare category in the proposed area. And I don't know if Dawn has anything to add. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open this up for public comment and then go through commissioner and agent comments, and then you'll have an opportunity to respond to any questions.
Sure.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 2 Lane Road?
We currently have 28 attendees present, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier,
I have no comments.
Member Cook. Member Cook. Yep, you're muted, Bill.
Yeah, no, I think the plan looks good. I have no issues with it.
Member Gradwell.
No comment on this.
Member Sargent.
I know you have to get access through the town landing, and you got permission from the DPW as well as from the harbor master, and thank you for that. For that purpose, the applicant must repair any damage to the public landing and improve the area upon completion as directed by the harbor master. And I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings. Thank you.
Member Viteri?
Yeah, I think the plans look good. I think these are minor activities if they were taking place in the buffer zone exclusively, but this is in a resource area of the land subject to coastal storm flooding. This is an RDA, and I think we're bound because there's an alteration of a resource area to require a notice of intent to find a positive RDA and require a notice of intent. That's my only comment. Perhaps the board proceeds in a different manner, but I feel like we have no choice under these circumstances. Also, I think there was a question from the last meeting whether this was also a riverfront area. So I guess my question is whether that determination has been made and whether there's additional requirements because of that. That's all I have.
Member Jackson?
No, thank you for getting the harbor master and DPW okays. Chuck, could you clarify some of Mr. Vitteri's questions?
Yes, I mean, it is a riverfront area. I guess in the past, the commission has looked at patios and decks under RDAs generally. But being the riverfront area, they, generally the mitigation plantings are 2-to-1 versus lower ratios for other areas. I think given the area there's definitely potential to increase the plantings along that river area, which would definitely increase the value along that area. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been a bit since I've looked at this one. Was there a dry well that's going to be used as part of this to deal with some of the rainwater? I don't remember seeing or hearing about that.
There was, if we needed to put one in, we could absolutely add one. The only issue that we're finding is the town has a drainage pipe that actually runs underneath this customer's house. And during heavy rain, we found that pipe is so old, it's actually not even a pipe. It's actually like stacked stone, and they made like a tunnel. And it's like, I don't even know, we can't even find a record of how old it is or where it actually runs from and to, but it runs directly through the middle of her house. So I don't know. The only question is if I think it would drain out, but do we cause more issue with the town drainage that runs underneath it? And honestly, we've talked to the town, we've talked to engineering, and we can't find a way. We don't want to mess with it because they said right now it functions. And they're like, we don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. The town has said that. So it's like, oh boy. So I mean, we probably could put it if it's farther away from where the pipe is. The pipe is like directly in the middle of the house. If we did a dry well that was far to the left where it's not near the pipe, probably be okay. But the closer you get to the pipe, I think would be detrimental to what the town already has kind of going underneath her house.
In your documentation, it says that you'd be piping the existing sump pump into a new dry well under the adjacent flower bed. Is that too close to the city drainage?
No.
Do you remember?
No.
Do you recall if that's in the documentation?
If you bring, well, Dylan wrote the documentation. He might be on with us, but Chuck, if you bring up the picture with the red and the blue and the green, I can kind of talk you through where the pipe exits.
Yep, just a second here.
No problem. Take your time. It's all good. So, did it come up? Oh, there it goes. So on the drawing, see there's a see the second yellow set of stairs, and there's a, yep, right there. That stone, the that's to the right of that. That's a stone steps that used to lead into the house. The pipe runs right under that and comes out and actually comes through the wall, probably, you know, just to the right of the 53 that's in the green. So I think, you know, safest bet if we did any drainage would be to the left of that, where the wall starts to L, would probably be the safest spot. Which so that would be like so if you came down to the 53, went left in that green space, kind of, and let that, yeah, like there, and even exactly right in there would probably be the safest space for any dry well. It would be in between the posts, and she has wisteria that runs along all those posts. So there's 3 plants of wisteria, and the first one, the third one, and the last one. So she has wisteria that grows over a structure that is kind of in place. So that would probably be the safest place for any dry well, just to make sure that we didn't disturb what's already existing and also gave what's going to be planted kind of room to live and grow.
Well, I think since that's part of the documentation and that's what we were operating under, that probably needs to be done. Okay.
Yep. You want to draw of it, or just you want to install? You mean? I got you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Please.
No problem.
Okay. Then where are we? Chuck, did you have any further comments?
Nope, not this time.
Okay, then we need a motion if people are so inclined to motion.
Charpentier moves for a negative determination for RDA 1786 at 2 Lane Road. With the
Gradwell
aforementioned,
seconds.
And what were you going to say, Linda, with the added
said-
conditions?
yeah, the added conditions from Dave. There was a 2-year monitoring of the mitigation plantings and the conducting any repairs of the grounds per the harbor master.
Did we close the public hearing yet?
Oh, no, we didn't. Thank you, Peter. Let's hold that motion. And would you like to make another motion, Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for RDA 1786 at 2 Lane Road.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Cook,
Yes.
Gradwell,
Yes.
Sergeant. Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay. We have another motion on the floor for a negative determination for RDA 1786 at 2 Lane Road, which has been moved and seconded. We'll have the roll call vote.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have NOI 028 with an unassigned DEP number at 55 Wingersheep Road. Brian and Linda Sullivan for construction of an elevated boardwalk and land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal dune, and buffer zone to coastal resource area, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc.
I believe that has number 2954 right now.
Yes.
Oh, okay. How did I miss that? 2954. Okay. Do we have Mr. Judd?
We do. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the
Okay.
record, thank you. John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, and thank you, Mr. Cook, for pointing that out, that that number was assigned the other day by DEP, and we also did receive a letter from DMF regarding the piping plovers. So for the record, John Judd representing the Sullivans for this property at 55 Wingersheep Road. We did have our first meeting on this property on the 16th of August at our last hearing. This is an elevated boardwalk, basically an extension the existing deck, thank you, Chuck, that would extend, is proposed to extend along the existing, or over, I should say, the existing footpath that is about 230 feet long. We are proposing a seasonal aluminum stairway that would extend at the end, that would go down to the scarp, and that would be removable seasonally. So this is a technique that is recommended by CZM and DEP. They'd like to see more of these to allow for that dune to stabilize, and where the footpath is basically eliminated American dune grass from growing. So this would all be existing with a 2-foot minimum vertical clearance over, as shown on the section profile. So again, this is a typical elevated boardwalk that we've typically done on the beach, and you can see it's a 36-inch wide as recommended by the DEP, and I think everything else is the fees have been paid, the order, the DEP number has been issued, and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project of 55 Wingershik Road?
We currently have 27 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, and then I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner and agent comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comments.
Member Cook.
No comments.
Member Gradwell.
No comment.
And Member Sargent.
No comment.
Member Materi.
Yeah, one question. What was the determination from Natural Heritage Endangered Species in their letter?
Madam Chair, would you like me to address that?
Yes, I have no additional comments, so yes, please.
Okay, yeah, so the habitat out here is the piping plover, and their recommendation, which is typical, is that there be no activity between April 1st and August 31st, which is obviously acceptable to the applicant. But they do have 4 recommendations to avoid adverse impacts, which are standard, and I believe Chuck has that letter, and you know, I can answer any other questions, but it's the piping plover habitat.
Yeah, these are the 4 conditions that they included. Those will be included with the order of conditions. I guess the one question I had is what the where the stairs will be stored in the winter. Like those not to be stored in the dune or in the dune grass.
Yeah, so typically they would pull them right back up on the boardwalk, and if that's an issue, they can bring them right back on the deck, bring it right back on the main deck of the house. So if that's something you'd like to incorporate in the order, that's more than okay with us, to make sure that they're not the stair is not stored in the dune.
And of course, the 2-year monitoring for the planted dune grass.
Yes.
Yeah. Did we get Mr. Sargent's comments?
Nope.
Did he have any?
He said he had none.
Okay. All right. Chuck, any other comments other than that one question?
Nope.
All right. I think we're set to move forward. We were basically waiting for the Natural Heritage letter, and we got it, and I think we're set to go. Linda, do you want to make a motion?
Do we have to close the public comment
Yes.
period first?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Charpentier moves to close the public comment period for NOI 0282954 at 55 Wingershik Road.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Sargent.
Yes.
Member Materi.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, Linda, I'm gonna let you take charge of motions.
Okay, Charpentier moves to accept NOI 0282954 at 55 Wingashiek Road with the aforementioned conditions of not storing the stairs on the dune grass in the winter and a 2-year monitoring of the dune grass.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, member Charpentier,
Yes,
member Cook,
Yes,
member Gradwell,
Yes,
Sergeant,
Yes,
member Lettieri,
Yes,
and member Jackson.
Yes. All right, thank you, Mr. Judd.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up, we have NOI 0282947, 50 Rowley Shore, Leslie Milne, for installation of a fiberglass spa, retaining wall, and pervious patio in land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal bank, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did speak with the applicant, and she has decided to reduce the size of that. So what we've asked is for a continuance, if possible, to resubmit a plan to Chuck ASAP that would show that reduced size for the spa. So.
And when did you want to continue it to?
To the next meeting on the 20th, if that's possible. I'll get that right into Chuck. Thank
Okay.
you.
Certainly, Linda.
yeah, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282947 at 50 Rowley Shore to the commission meeting of September 20th.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, member Charpentier,
Yes,
member Cook,
yes,
member Gradwell,
Yes,
member Sergeant,
yes,
member Lettieri,
yes,
and member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, that concludes our continued business. Next up is new business. We have a remand order of NOI 0282859 at 10 Point Road, Salvatore and Nancy Vigorito for construction of a second story to a single family home in buffer zone to coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Richard A. Nyland, Lynch de Simone and Nyland LLP. And we have to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone, do we have the applicant?
Yes, he should be promoting now. Mr. Nyland, if you could unmute and share your camera, turn your camera on. No, he did indicate that he had a couple different meetings he was attending tonight, so he may be on a different meeting at the moment.
want to table this?
Yeah, we can table this until he appears.
Okay, we've got quite a bit to do, so might as well move along.
I agree. Okay, you okay with that, Chuck?
Yeah.
All right.
Back
Next
to him.
up then, we will table 10 Point Road and move on to extension 0282699 for lot 5, 163 Atlantic Road, Will Scuta for a 1-year extent. I'm sorry?
Sorry, Mr. Nyland's hand just went up, so.
Oh,
But-
okay.
the-
Let's take care of the extension. Mr. Nyland, be patient for 1 minute. For 1-year extension for NOI 0282699, construction of 2 multifamily homes in buffer zone to coastal bank and bordering vegetated wetlands, represented by Will Scuta, the Moran Cameron Group, Inc. Do we have Mr. Scuta?
He should be promoting now.
Good evening, Will Scooter from the Moran Cameron Group here on behalf of 171 Atlantic Road LLC for the project over at 163 Atlantic Road, which was formerly known as Lot 5. We're just here to extend the order of conditions. The majority of the project is built out but we just want to extend the order for final grading, final landscaping around the property. This project also had a large wetland replication area in the back. That was installed in the spring of 2021 and has been doing very well, as I've been told. So just want to extend the order for 1 year at this point.
Okay, thank you. We will open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 163 Atlantic Road?
We currently have 26 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comment?
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gradwell,
comment,
Member Sargent,
No comment.
Member Viteri,
No comment.
Member Jackson.
No comment. Chuck, what about you?
Nothing from my end.
Okay, then Linda, I trust you to make an emotion.
Okay.
To do the right motion.
The Charpentier moves to close the public comment period for extension 028.
Public hearing, I think.
Oh, public hearing, for extension 0282699, lot 5, 163 Atlantic Road.
and Gradwell seconds,
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Gradwell,
yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes,
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Linda?
Charpentier moves to approve extension 0282699, lot 5, 163 Atlantic Road.
and Gradwell seconds,
Call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
yes,
Member Gradwell,
yes,
Member Sargent,
yes,
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, sir, you're all set.
Great, thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Let's move back to remand order of NOI 0282859 10 Point Road, Salvatore and Nancy Vigorito for construction of a second story to a single family home in buffer zone to coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Richard Nyland of Lynch, DeSimone and Nyland LLP.
There we go. Good evening.
Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
My apologies. I couldn't click on for some reason. Richard Nyland, 2 Beach Road Road in Ipswich on behalf of the Vigoritos.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Suzanne is on this evening. She indicated that she might be, Suzanne Egan, but what this is a matter that we discussed back in 2022 for an addition to an existing single-family home off of Coffin's Beach at 10 Point Road. We made a presentation, explained that the second addition is above the FEMA floodplain, and there were some concerns by a couple of the members as to work that had taken place on the first floor and how that had affected the second floor. The commission then voted 3-2 to 1, 3 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 remand. And what that meant was it was a denial because we didn't have a majority vote. So we appealed that decision to both Superior Court under the ordinance and also to DEP under the Wetlands Act. We had a site visit and the DEP issued a superseding order allowing the project for the reasons that I indicated. It's not in a resource area. The coastal bank that's adjacent is not a sediment source, and we're above the floodplain. And at that stage, then we went, as we always do, we went back to Superior Court and discussed the matter, and we're in the process of getting a remand when a motion for intervention was filed by the neighbor. That was denied by the court, and so a remand order was issued to come back to the commission, and we're hoping that now that the commission understands that the project has nothing to do with what took place on the first floor, for which building permits and a certificate of compliance were issued, that the commission can now vote in favor of the project that we presented in 2022. John Judd is with me. If you have any questions, want to look at the plan or anything, but I think it's pretty clean as far as we're concerned that this project should be approved. And the best way to do that is through the remand order.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a public hearing, so we're going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the remand order of 10 Point Road?
We have 26 attendees and there's 2 hands up at this time. First is Joel Favaza.
Thank you. For the record, Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street in Gloucester. Here on behalf of the Friedpertigs, who are the neighbors directly abutting this property. Chuck, you may have a hand up from Scott Goddard. He's the wetland scientist that I have with me tonight. You want to let him in also. He'll be part of this quick commentary. So at the outset, I want to kind of establish the duty of the commission here. I want to point out that you are here tonight looking at things from the perspective of the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance only. Typically, you're looking at the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance and the Wetland Protection Act, but in that case, DEP has taken over jurisdiction for the Wetlands Protection Act, and you were just here with regards to the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. And honestly, what DEP has done with their regulations is somewhat irrelevant from what you do tonight, because they are only looking at this project from the standpoint of the Wetland Protection Act and those regulations, not the ordinance you're in charge of administering. And in fact, the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance is specifically established to provide protection above and beyond the Wetland Protection Act and its regulations. You can quote the Wetlands Ordinance from Gloucester. It says, in the event of any conflict between the provisions of the Gloucester Wetland Ordinance and the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and its regulations, the more protective measures will take priority. So where the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance has a more restrictive or more protective language, that takes priority when you're analyzing this under the GWO. Excuse me, I seem to be losing my voice at the worst time possible. So if you go through the stated purposes of the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, and I'm quoting here, it is to provide that land in the city subject to seasonal or periodic flooding shall not be used in such a manner as to endanger the health or safety of the occupants thereof, or of the public generally, or to burden the public with costs resulting from individual choices of land use. Another stated purpose is to minimize the impact of coastal storms. And most importantly, in the stated purposes, and this is very important for tonight's discussion, it says that in determining whether activities will have a significant effect upon wetland interests, the commission may examine not only the effect of a particular activity, aka the second floor, but the cumulative effect of all activities contained within a resource area or the buffer zone within the applicant's proposal. And this is where you and DEP go your separate ways. If you read the DEP's superseding order that you've been asked tonight to basically, mimic with a positive vote, and by their own admission, it's kind of issued with blinders on. They refuse to look at all the bad deeds, all the bait and switch, all the non-compliant construction that the applicant had already performed without any permission whatsoever, or at best, in abuse of a prior order, again, which was to replace some windows and do interior renovation, and somehow became an entire house rebuild. And so in the vacuum of looking at only the proposed second floor construction and ignoring everything it was constructed on top of, the DEP said, yeah, this second floor seems to meet the standards as a standalone project. You are not required as the Gloucester Conservation Commission to have those same blinders on. In fact, you're specifically given the ability to look at the cumulative effects. And it's those cumulative effects is why this proposed second floor addition is so problematic. When the house was rebuilt in 2018, it should have been built to modern floodplain standards. But because the order of conditions and the building permit contemplated just some modest renovation work, not a full rebuild, no one made them do so. And so currently on the property sits a house not built with floodplain compliant materials, not built with construction methods appropriate for floodplain construction, and not elevated out of the floodplain itself. And to be clear, this property is in a velocity zone VE 31. That is a wave that is 31 feet tall measured from the beach. And the first floor of this house is only 25 feet above the beach, and the lower playroom guest room area is even lower, around 17 feet above the beach. So when this large wave or the floodwaters hit, the existing house is going to be severely damaged. It's going to spread debris, chemicals, biologically hazardous waste, etc., throughout the neighborhood and the adjacent resource areas. And I agree with the applicant that there's nothing that can be done about this existing danger relative to the notice of intent before you. However, you absolutely have the full power, and in fact, I would argue the duty, to make sure that an existing bad situation is not made worse by permitting further construction. What good does building a second floor above the floodplain elevation do if the first floor on which it sits is likely to be partially or entirely destroyed in a flood? The same argument about, could be made about balancing a tray on top of bowling pins. Sure, when you roll the bowling ball down, it won't be tall enough to hit the tray, but when it wipes out the pins under that tray, that tray is still coming down. And so the cumulative effect of allowing this second floor is that you're increasing the biologically hazardous waste that will be waiting to be spilled into the floodwaters as a result of the increased bedroom and bathroom count. You'll be adding additional wood, glass, metal, personal property debris. They'll be unleashed to crash into nearby homes and scatter across the resource areas. And so you were right the first time you denied this request, and you'll be right again if you uphold your denial based only on those cumulative effects. However, and this will turn it over to Scott, upon closer review of the NOI before you on remand, there's actually additional unpermitted work that's taking place directly in resource areas that's shown on the plan that has never been addressed and needs to be addressed before this commission could possibly approve anything proposed on the site. I'll turn it over to Scott Goddard now to explain further. When he concludes, I ask you again to please uphold your denial. It was correct then, and it's correct now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Favaza. Chuck, is there anybody else?
Sorry. We have Scott Goddard with a hand up.
Good evening, members of the commission. This is Scott Goddard calling in. I would like
address for the record, please.
Sure. Yeah. 291 Main Street, Suite 8, Northborough, Massachusetts, 01532. If I'm able to be given permission to share screen, I would welcome that opportunity. In the meantime, I'll give you a brief overview of myself and my history with this project. So my history with this project is very, very brief. I have only been asked to opine on it within the last few weeks. My history as a wetlands consultant, though, is not quite as succinct. I've been doing this work for the better part of 30 years, worked on many thousands of projects in the capacity of representing applicants before conservation commissions, which has included many coastal projects, all the way from simple applications to more complex adjudicatory hearings or other cases similar fashion to that. In this particular case, Joel had reached out to me a few weeks ago. It may have been, more useful to get involved sooner, but we are where we are, and kind of put a fresh set of eyes on this project and its history from a regulatory and technical perspective of a wetlands consultant. I own Goddard Consulting, which is a professional wetlands consulting company. We have 15 full-time wetland scientists that I work with, 3 offices in Massachusetts. Our current project active jobs is over 600 projects going on currently in Massachusetts. So I'm not unfamiliar with the kind of matters before you this evening. So upon my review of the project, do I have ability to share screen? Because it would be helpful if I could, and I'm not seeing an opportunity on the.
Chuck, can you do that?
Yes, if you guys want that.
Great. So Joel, there's, my angle here isn't. Oh, beautiful. There we go. I'll turn the video on so you can see my smile. So, my angle here isn't just to be a kind of a troublesome hired gun. I see that on many cases in these kind of, abutter confrontations, and I don't really care for that approach. I think sound science, good regulatory review, and overall tone of fairness and appropriateness should review these projects. So when I get asked to look at something like this, you know, I tell people that I'm going to just give them a fair assessment, that I'm not just going to take a position for the sake of taking a position. And I don't believe I've done that
And
here.
please get to the point. We do have a very long agenda, and I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. Now that,
Thank
now
you.
I can share my screen. So I'm not going to recap what Joel has already stated about land subject to coastal storm flowage, because I do agree with him. Even though the regs are somewhat silent on land subject to coastal storm flowage, there are some problems with the history there. You guys know that better than I do. I'm not going to get into that. This is what I would like to get into. There's been something that has been largely absent from the prior and current application that I think is significant. The previous permits here from 2017 to 2020 dealt with a house reconstruction and some accessory uses on the property. And when I'm, as a professional, I can only look at resource areas and impacts to resource areas. Kind of that's it. I need to stay in my lane. Other issues of Board of Health, building department are sort of outside of my area of expertise, and so I can't comment on those. So this plan before you here is an aerial photograph taken from 2014. This is prior to the 2017 application. I want to bring your attention to the yellow line that I drew on there. The yellow line is the coastal bank boundary as depicted by the applicant and their engineers in 2017. So that yellow line is extracted from their plan and superimposed on this aerial photograph. So the location of the coastal bank, and I've visited adjacent to the site and I've seen the site. It's a fairly well-defined rock, steep slope, coastal outcropping. And then as you approach the top of it, where it softens in its pitch, there's some vegetation, and then you have the plateau on which the house sits upon. So where they defined it in yellow in 2017 was, I think, exactly appropriately classified as to its location. The work that you permitted in 2017 was only for buffer zone work to coastal bank. There was zero permission to alter coastal bank, either referenced in the order of conditions that was issued in 17 or the certificate of compliance that was granted in 2020. Nor did the applicant seek retroactive approval for unpermitted alteration to coastal bank that has happened since prior to the issuance of this current application. And so what I'm going to show you tonight is proof positive that there's been direct alteration to substantial coastal bank on this property that needs to be reviewed by this commission, at very least as part of this application, potentially under other kind of enforcement.
And because of the time limits, we're going to limit you to an additional 5 minutes.
Perfect. That's all I need. This plan right here is a current aerial photograph for, say, 2019. The boundary of this red line is what's shown on the current site plan as the the coastal bank boundary. There's a difference between the two lines. This is what I want to draw your attention to. Okay. The yellow line is where the bank was before the 2017 work. The red line is where the coastal bank lies today. There's approximately 150 linear feet of coastal bank that's been directly altered, built with a vertical retaining wall, and had backfill behind it with an area of several hundred square feet to expand the lawn out and over the coastal bank. Never been addressed in either of the two applications. The data in which I obtained that from is here. This is the 2017 application. So the yellow line shown on this plan is exactly the yellow line that I superimposed, and it's directly observable in previous photographs. And here's the current site plan as before you, showing a radically different location of coastal bank, much more oceanward of the current one. Okay, so that's where I get the data from. This is the overlay comparison plan. The orange line is what the original coastal bank was that has been directly altered. There's been now a vertical retaining wall built on top of the coastal bank, currently at the location of that red line. It amounts to 148 linear feet of coastal bank that was directly altered. This isn't just buffer zone work. This is direct alteration to a resource area without a permit. And now we're adding and building further upon this same footprint. There was 382 square feet behind the coastal bank that was filled in on coastal bank to expand the footprint of the work. These are some photographs that show the before and after. In 2016, prior to the current work, you can see along the edge of the driveway where the yellow line is, there was no stone retaining wall. Again, in 2018, no stone retaining wall. If you go to look at that same view today, that's the retaining wall that's there. That was the beginning of the era of Coastal Bank. Furthermore, around this patio in here, they bumped this way the heck out above and on top of the Coastal Bank. This shows you here in 2016 where it used to be. It used to come right up to and touch the house. That's what the old plan showed and was accurate. Again, you can see it here. This is very good. You can actually see this little triangle of Coastal Bank. That's what's now has been gone. It's been completely wiped away and replaced by a retaining wall. There's what you see today. So that retaining wall where this red line is what is a picture taken as of a couple days ago by myself out on the beach line, showing where the Coastal Bank is now. So we have this 4 to 6 foot high or 8 foot high retaining wall with weeping in the front on the edges of it that has replaced the prior natural coastal bank with an armored man-made coastal bank. So the purpose of this, and my 5 minutes is up, so I'll stop there. But, to bring to your attention that this application fails to address direct alteration to resource areas that I think is important for the commission to consider. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment, Chuck? Chuck?
Sorry. There are 20 attendees and there are no other hands up at this time.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to commissioner and agent comments.
Member Charpentier.
I'm just very concerned about what was presented and armoring a coastal bank.
Member Cook, you're muted. You're muted, Bill.
Yeah.
You're still muted, Bill. There you go.
Is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Unfortunately, what happened in the past that wasn't documented was approved. DEP court said, we can't go backwards and look at mistakes that were made in the past. So we have to look at this in light of what it was. And that's what this remand order is, basically telling us that, the applicant's request to add a single second story within the same footprint. And we can't go back and look at anything that was questionably done in the past. So based on that, I have, no other questions.
Rebel?
I'm in the same situation with Mr. Cook. I had originally objected to this because it was making small additions in place of one big one when they knew all along they were going to make the big one. But DEP was extremely explicit. We can only look at the present situation.
Member Sargent?
No comment.
Member Terry?
I kind of see this as two different issues. I mean, the first issue is the remand as to what we can consider on the order of conditions. And I'm reading over the remand order, and I believe we are limited to the wetlands ordinance. And we are anything on the superseding order of conditions or the DEP side is out of our hands right now. So that's the first issue. The second issue sounds like a potential enforcement issue, which we may have to discuss separately and perhaps in executive session about that, perhaps with Ms. Egan and town council. But going back to the first issue on the wetlands ordinance issue, I take it from Mr. Favaza's presentation. I'd like to hear from Mr. Nyland if he has any rebuttal to that, but it seems like the more stringent aspect of this, which is the only thing that we can consider under the ordinance, as opposed to what the DEP considered in their superseding order of conditions, is this cumulative impact issue or consideration that Mr. Favaza raised. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Nyland if in rebuttal on that point, to see if there is a difference here under the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance as opposed to proceeding under the superseding order of conditions.
Member Jackson?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Cook. The preceding work was given an order of compliance and certificate of compliance, and we deal with the second floor addition, which we felt did not have, which due to vote confusion, did not pass. But DEP has said that that did not have an impact on the resource areas, and that's what we need to consider. And if we do not approve the remand order, then we leave everything in the hands of DEP, rather than having any control over it whatsoever, which we do have some added conditions recommended by the attorney. And I feel that we should move forward. That does not exclude the possibility of a second action of enforcement that Mr. Viteri mentioned, but for the moment, I think we need to stick with the remand order. What about comments from you, Chuck?
I agree. I think the possible enforcement for the additional wall area is a separate issue. There's nothing in the Wetlands Protection Act that precludes applicants from doing multiple projects on the same structure using multiple NOIs over several years. So I think it's a separate issue. And Suzanne Egan has joined. She did have her hand raised.
And Mr. Viteri also wanted to hear from Mr. Nyland. Okay, why don't we go with Ms. Egan first?
Thank you, members of the commission. Sorry, I wasn't here in the beginning of this meeting. I just wanted to clarify one thing that a number of the commission members said, is that the court has, that the motion for remand is limiting the commission to look at this in a certain way. If you recall, the reason this is before the commission today is because the DEP issued the superseding order of conditions under the Wetland Act. Your initial denial was also appealed to Superior Court under the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance. Once DEP issued that superseding order of conditions, approving it and sort of addressing a lot of the issues of the Conservation Commission, then it was decided that it would be appropriate for the commission to review this again in light of that superseding order of conditions to determine whether that order protected the interest under the Wetlands Ordinance also. So it is important to keep your focus on the notice of intent that was filed and that you originally made your decision on, and the DEP superseding order of conditions. So that is what is before you tonight. But I also want to make it clear that there's nothing in the court order that says you have to adopt the superseding order of conditions. This was brought back to you. The parties agreed to bring this back for a public hearing to make that determination. So you do have the ability to make a decision on the basis of what's been presented to you tonight.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Egan. Mr. Viteri, do you still want to hear from Mr. Nyland?
I do. I'd like to know what is different in our consideration between DEP's superseding order and the wetlands ordinance. Because in my understanding, if there's no difference, then there's no decision for us to make. Our hands are tied and we're bound by the superseding order. I guess I'm not privy to the court proceedings or what went into the motion to request for the remand or anything like that. But maybe Mr. Nyland could provide some background. Maybe Ms. Egan can come in again and provide some background. But I still would like to hear from Mr. Nyland on coverage under the wetlands ordinance.
Okay, so there are a couple, and I will try to be brief. And yeah, the general proposition I agree with Council Favazza is that the Conservation Commission acts under the Wetlands Protection Act and under its local ordinance. And in terms of the ordinance, it's given credence to the extent that it's different than the Wetlands Protection Act and how it protects resource areas. The most notable you see in most communities, in a lot of communities, is they'll have maybe a 25-foot setback or a 50-foot setback, or no buildings within 50 feet, no disturbance within 25 feet. Or they also may protect aesthetics or recreation or different interests. And that's what distinguishes a bylaw or an ordinance in the case of the city from the Wetlands Protection Act, which has a buffer zone, but it doesn't have no build or no disturb areas. So the courts have been very clear to support ordinances and bylaws that have those differences. Here, Mr. Favazza read the purposes, but those are the same purposes really that are under the Wetlands Protection Act. So protecting public health and safety is something that takes place under both the Wetlands Act and under the ordinance. So I do not see any difference in terms of how this commission regulates activities on coastal banks versus how you regulate them under the Wetlands Protection Act. You have a FEMA line, you have land subject to coastal storm flowage, and you regulate them both the same way. I will note that the court also cited the case that I had cited, which is up in Reading, where a commission denied a activity proposed by an applicant because there was a violation on the property associated with another order. And the court said, no, you cannot do that. And the decision that denied Mr. Favazza's client the opportunity to participate in this litigation cited that case and cited the fact that Mr. Favazza identified no impact from our second floor onto their property. So I believe that the cases are very clear that you don't look at what's taken place beforehand, or if there's a potential violation, an actual violation. You look at, does this or a notice of intent meet the performance standards under your ordinance? I will agree with you and other members that we should come back to you and explain what took place on the retaining wall. If I had known that this was going to be raised, because I'm unaware of it, I would have been able to address that this evening. My client is in the hospital. I can't reach him. I could have been able to reach him earlier, but because we hear this tonight at the 11th hour, I'm not able to address it, but I can tell you, we will come back to you, whether you ask us or not, and explain what took place with a coastal bank. But that has nothing to do with the fact that our project meets the requirements under your ordinance for a second floor that's above the floodplain and not involving any resource area. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you very much. I think it's time to move forward unless there's any additional comment from the commissioners or from Ms. Egan. I don't see anybody motioning to do that. Okay. All right, then let's move forward. Linda, would you like to close the public hearing?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for remand order of NOI 0282859 at 10 Point Road.
Gradwell seconds, but he questions that, do we have to include the provisions that Ms. Egan brought forth in the letter to the commission?
Those will be taken care of in the motion.
So we have a second.
I did second.
Yes.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yeah.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Hey, Linda, do you want to put forth a motion?
Yes, I will read. This is a little bit long, so I will read this into the record.
Speak into the microphone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Thank you.
Yeah, Charpentier moves that the Gloucester issue an order of
Speak into the mic.
I'm trying. Hold on, let me bring this a little
I
closer.
know. Yeah,
Okay, still here?
yep.
Now let's start again. Charpentier moves that the Gloucester Conservation Commission issue an order of conditions to Salvatore and Nancy Vigorito for the property located at 10 Point Road, map 256, lot 8, DEP number 0282859, to construct a second floor addition within the footprint of the existing house in a buffer zone to a coastal bank and land subject to coastal storm flowage, consistent with and including the same condition as the Mass DEP superseding order of conditions dated May 9th, 2023, and including 3 additional conditions. Number 41, the applicant shall provide written notice of any changes to the commission so that the commission may determine if a new notice of intent under the local ordinance should be filed. Condition 42, upon request of the commission, the applicant shall provide data necessary to resolve any issues regarding compliance with this order of conditions. Condition 43, upon request of the commission, the applicant shall provide data necessary to resolve any issues regarding compliance with this order of conditions.
Masterfully done. Thank you, Linda.
And Gradwell seconds.
Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. You're all set, Mr. Nyland. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time and your courtesies this evening.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have RDA 1773, 436 Washington Street, Cody Ayton. Removal of vegetation, installation of a natural playground and path in the riverfront area and buffer zone to coastal resource area, represented by Cody Ayton. And I don't believe we have anything new in the files. Do we have a representative?
Yeah, I do not see Cody listed here. If there's anybody else here that is here to speak for this project, please raise your hand. Not seeing any hands at this time.
Okay, why don't we continue this to the meeting of September 28th?
20th.
20th.
Yeah, I've got it in my head that it's the 28th. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, Charpentier moves to continue RDA 1773 at 436 Washington Street to the commission meeting of September 20th.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Redwall,
Yes.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Jackson.
Yes. Okay, next up, we have RDA 1787, 18 and 18B Rogers Street, Melissa Sala for renovation of an existing building and installation of a pervious patio and land subject to coastal storm flowage, represented by Robert Simmons of Simmons Studio Architects LLC. Do we have Mr. Simmons?
He should be promoting now.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. Thank you, commissioners, for
Thank you.
entertaining our request for determination of applicability on the rebirth, hopefully, of Sugar Magnolia's restaurant down at the 18 Rogers Street.
Name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, I'm Robert Simmons, and it's 1 Gaphead Road in Rockport, Mass.
Great, thank you. Please continue.
Sorry, my light's right here. So I don't know if I can share my screen or you can bring up my my plans, but basically we are attempting to renovate the existing structure at 18 Rogers Street. We've submitted our early plans to the city. Went and had a pre-application meeting zoning and so forth, and met with conservation agent Devin Harrington to discuss the issues with our project and how we might go about this. And she suggested that we submit for an RDA to see where we go. But basically, we're renovating the first floor spaces on the existing buildings, which take up quite a bit of the existing site, as you can see there, to create about a 3,000 square foot restaurant on the first floor. We're removing the small frame building in the very front of the street at Rogers Street, which is on the left-hand side of that plan, and replacing it with a new 3-story structure that would have 2 dwelling units, one on the second floor and one on the third floor, to sort of recreate the historic street wall that used to be out there on Rogers Street all along the way there. And we're looking at this plan. You can see there's a deck, an outdoor deck, which is a 2-story high space. And then the third floor hangs over that and rests on that column in the upper right corner of the plan. So it's covered space, but we are removing an asphalt lot underneath that and putting a pervious deck there to sort of act as a way for the little bit of water that we do have on the site, on the side there in the green areas, to percolate down there. And we're going to put 2 feet of gravel underneath that deck as sort of a retention area there. So stepping back a little bit, this project is a little bit complex in that we have a pedestrian way called Boynton Way on the upper edge of the plan there, and it is truly a pedestrian way. It is basically controlled by the city of Gloucester, and it basically takes up most of that side yard on the property. And it actually includes a 15-foot area on the left-hand side and the rear alley of the property as well, which is basically the city has put gravel in there, and there's a large catch basin there. Besides Boynton Way being a pedestrian way, it's also serving as a drainage easement. There's a large stormwater drainage pipe that used to go under the building and now goes along Boynton Way down to another large catch basin right at the base of Boynton Way there on Rogers Street. So in terms of the project, what we believe the interpretation of is on the floodplain ordinance section 5.5.7 is that mixed use projects are exempt from the floodplain regulations, except that we need to comply with zoning and stay under a 10% increase in impervious materials. And we're at 8%. We'll probably be actually a little bit less than 8%, which is mostly due to the cooler that we're putting in the back alley there, and a few sidewalks that reach across to Boynton Way for egress and ingress, sort of at grade. So Boynton Way sort of slopes up about 4 feet from the right side of the plan to the left side of the plan. And when you get up about 1.5 feet, it's perfect for us to have street level access, ADA access right across that deck, which will be raised about 12 inches from the Rogers Street sidewalk, and allows us to have a really easy access into the front of the building there. The part of the site that is under our control in terms of planting and vegetation is this 4-foot wide back alley along the bottom of the page there, that is currently overgrown because the site has been unused for about 6 or 7 years. And there we're planning on putting a perimeter drain around the three sides of the rear building, if you will, because it's basically submerged half a floor. And when we do that, that'll uncover the gravel that used to be there, and it's now mostly weeds and overgrowth. And we'll just be replacing that with either gravel or native plantings to sort of slow the water down a bit in those areas. We do hope to work with the city and sort of reinvigorate some of the sparse plantings that they do have out there, and the mulch cover that's out there in those green areas. And there's a tree pocket just up the way that's off of our property, to sort of enliven that space and make it interesting and really reactivate this pedestrian way that has basically had no windows looking out onto it from this building for the last 42 years. The other things we're looking at in terms of additional measures that may help with flowage and stormwater management. Again, I mentioned that hopefully we can cooperate with the city and invigorate those plantings a bit on the east side or the upper side of that plan. We do believe the roof deck might have a sedum garden up above on the dwelling units above that might slow down some storm flow. And as I mentioned, the alley on the west and the rear, when we excavate to put a perimeter drain in there, we can hopefully plant that a little bit better so the gravel just doesn't let the water flow through as fast as it wants to flow through. Melissa's on here too, the owner, and I don't know if she wants to add anything to that, but I think that's a good segue, and just wanted to get your comments on what you think about the applicability for our project.
Okay, thank you very much. Melissa, did you want to speak while we provide the applicant room to speak? Chuck, has she got her hand up?
She does not at this time.
Okay, all right. Then we'll open this up for public comment. What we do is public comment, and then we go through commissioner comments and agent comments, and then the applicant can respond to any questions that may have arisen. So we'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 18 and 18B Rogers Street?
And we currently have 20 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comments?
Member Cook.
No comments.
Member Gradwell.
No comment.
Member Sargent.
No comment.
Member Viteri.
No comment.
And Member Jackson.
I think it looks delightful, and I'm pleased that you're going to take charge of the vegetation and see what you can do to beautify and better the environment. Thank you, along with the other management of stormwater and rain that you had mentioned. Thank you very much. Chuck, did you have any comments?
I do not. No.
Okay.
Melissa's hand is up now. I don't know if you want to allow her to speak.
Who's it?
Melissa, the
Oh,
owner.
okay. Yeah, she can speak.
Hi,
Hello, Melissa. Name and address for the record, please.
Melissa Sala, 4 Pebble Path, Gloucester, Massachusetts, 019.
Okay. What would
I
you like to say?
I just wanted to say I appreciate all you guys being here, and I'm super excited about this, and I can't wait to get back to cooking, hopefully sooner than later. And just thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We look forward to you getting back to cooking. Okay. Let's move forward. Linda, would you like to make a motion?
Charpentier moves to close the public comment period on RDA.
Public hearing.
Moves to close the public hearing for RDA 1787, 18 and 18B Rogers Street.
Gradwell seconds.
Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Gradwell,
Yes,
Sergeant,
Yes,
and Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes. Linda, back to you.
Now, Charpentier moves for negative determination for RDA 1787 at 18 and 18B Rogers Street.
and Gradwell seconds.
I'll call Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
yes,
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, you're all set.
You're all set.
All right, thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Very well.
Commissioners, does anybody need a break, 5-minute break?
that would be nice.
Okay, let's call a 5-minute break, and it is 7:57. Let's all be back here at 8:02.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, looks like we have everybody back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait a minute, missing somebody.
Cook.
Ah. We'll give him 1 minute.
And Joe, do you want to start? We've got 9 of these
Yeah,
to do.
I know.
We've got 9
I-
and it's 8 o'clock already, so I think we should
Yeah.
start.
I just keep scrolling to see if Bill's there. Okay. We'll reconvene, and next up is RDA 1788 at 698 Washington Street, CK Rental Properties LLC, expansion of existing deck and land subject to coastal storm flowage, riverfront area, and buffer zone to coastal resource area, represented by Joel Favaza, Seaside Legal Solutions, PC. Do we have Mr. Favaza?
Actually, I have Mr. Cook here too.
Yes.
He's rejoined as a guest, so he should be promoting to before Mr. Fuzz starts.
Okay. Mr. Favaza, name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. For the record, Joel
Thank you,
Havas,
Chuck.
Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street here in Gloucester. Here on behalf of CK Rental Properties LLC, I'm gonna share my screen for everybody. And so, being sensitive to the agenda, I'll be clear, I have a full thorough presentation. I'm gonna give you the Cliff Notes version.
Thank you.
If you have more questions, please ask them so I can go back and answer them, but otherwise. So what you're looking at is essentially what you'd see for the project. You're looking at the existing house at 698 Washington Street. You're looking at a licensed granite bulkhead that holds up a gravel yard currently with a black railings there. I'm actually grabbing a little John Madden pen here. So what this railing is currently is filled tidelands. It's been licensed, and there's some gravel behind that and some paver walkways. And I'll actually skip right over to that picture. No, my computer just froze.
No, we're seeing the
Oh, there we go.
existing
Sorry.
structure.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I just lost it on my end, though. So that was so scary. Hold on, let me keep going. Oh, there we go. So you're able to see the existing gravel and the pavers, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, we're here for an RDA looking for negative determination. As we were just looking to convert this area to an open air deck. One of the funnier things is that if this were a lawn, it would be specifically called out in the regs as not requiring a notice of intent and being something that would be a negative determination. But because it's gravel and pavers, it was safer to come here and ask to confirm that putting an open air deck over this does not require a notice of intent. But otherwise, I said, everything is here, the fill is here, the drainage is here, the structure is licensed. It's just a matter of putting an open air deck over this gravel area. And you do have the authority to do that within the regs. They do state that even if it's not a specifically called out exception, like converting a lawn would be, the Conservation Commission can still make a negative determination that this is not something that's going to impact resource areas that would require a more thorough filing. So again, trying to be as brief as possible, I'll cut it right here and simply ask for a negative determination as to the applicability of the ordinance and state act. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You know the routine. We open it up for public comment and then commissioner comments, and then you can respond to all of the comments. So we'll open up this for public comment right now. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 698 Washington Street?
We currently have 19 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. Let's move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comment.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Gredwell,
No comment.
Member Sergeant,
No comment.
Member Viteri.
Yeah, I have a question. How high is the deck gonna be compared to the existing gravel and that rock wall that's supporting the fence? And what's gonna happen to all the plantings that are on the existing patio?
Member Jackson.
My question was similar. You're taking out a lot of plantings. I'd love to see some plantings go in somewhere else to mitigate for those. Chuck, what about you?
Yeah, I echo the concerns. There is vegetation there that I'm sure is providing some amount of habitat. This is riverfront. I think at least that same amount of vegetation probably needs to be retained somewhere on the site.
Okay, Mr. Favazza.
Thank you. The deck is intended to be fairly flush with the top of the wall itself. The top of the wall is about 3 feet above mean high tide, and the decking would be essentially flush with that. As to the question about the existing decorative plantings that are in the gravel area now, those will be coming out, and there'd be no problem with a simple condition that prior to construction, we need to go speak with the conservation agent and identify how we're relocating or replacing those elsewhere on site. Was that all the questions?
Okay. I think so. All right, then I think we can move forward if there are no further discussions. Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to close public hearing for RDA 1788 at 698 Washington Street.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves for a negative determination for RDA 1788 at 698 Washington Street.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes, with the aforementioned condition that the applicant will submit a replacement landscape plan for the agent's approval prior to issuance of the order of conditions.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have RDA 1789, 73 Woodward Avenue, Brian Orr, for vegetation removal in the riverfront area and buffer zone to coastal resource area. We have Mr. Orr.
Let me promote him now. Mr. Orr, if you could unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Any luck? Shall we table him for a hearing and come back? How are we doing there?
I'm not
We
sure.
can't hear you, Mr. Orr.
Are you called in on your phone? Can you raise your hand on your phone so we know which number you're calling in on? Was it *9? Does your number end in 1780? Okay. Are you able to talk now?
Can you hear us now?
Yes,
Can you
yes,
hear
we
us?
can, sir. Yes, we can, sir. Okay.
Sorry about that. So sorry. Anyway,
all
I'll
right.
be very brief.
Okay,
Sorry.
first name and address for the
Yeah.
record, please, and then a brief description
Okay.
of the project.
Okay. My name is Brian Orr. I'm at 73 Woodward Ave in Gloucester.
Okay.
So we just recently moved into the house, and we've gotten multiple people advising us that we must remove some trees because they're dangerous. And that's why we're here. So the trees that we outlined, there's 5 trees right along the road that some have already broken in the past and have damaged cars and are leaning towards neighbor properties and cars and where people are parked. So we have made a plan to take out the 5 trees that are dangerous, and we're very happy to put in any number of mitigation. We're gardeners and we love planting and we love to have rhododendrons and hydrangeas, so we'll probably do more than mitigate this removal. But my home inspector said, first thing he said to me, and looking on the outside is you need some tree work. So that's why we're here. So
we did submit photos also of the particular trees in question that are, we have the street in front of us, as I'm sure you know. So we didn't realize that we were within the buffer zone, but I believe right along the roadway there is the still within 200 feet perhaps of the
high water mark. But you can see in the photo, for example, the one on the left, that there's a parking spot that was carved out here below, and all of the tree roots have been exposed, and the tree is leaning very precariously out over that parking spot. And we have others. We should say that the property hasn't really been well cared for in at least the last 7 years, with very little work done to trim or do anything else to try to keep the trees safe. In this particular case, the oak that's along the driveway, part of it broke last year, but the rest of the tree was not removed, and now that tree, remaining part of it, is at risk. You can actually reach into that tree and pull out pieces of the tree where that part on the right fell off. So it's in a precarious situation.
And we've also been told by the arborists that because of the height of the trees, that they're quite, white pines become quite fragile as they get taller. So basically we just have long trunks going up with very little vegetation at the top. And so all of our neighbors have told us that the trees sway. Obviously they've adapted to the environment, but that they sway and move quite a bit with wind, and that it is frightening to neighbors. So that's why we have made the request to come in to get these particular trees along the front of the house removed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. What we're going to do is open this up for public comment and then for each of the commissioners to comment. And then at that point, you can respond to any questions that have been raised from everybody. So I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 73 Woodward Avenue? Use your raise your hand button or dial *9 on your smart device.
We currently have 19 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. Let's move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comment.
Member Cook.
The only comment I have is I think it's B and C in the photographs. It shows it on a pretty steep embankment. If you're removing those trees, I'd like to see that you can stump grind them, but leave the stumps, leave the roots in place so that we don't encourage any erosion. The other ones that are along the street, if you wanted to pull them out, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Member Gradwell.
No comment.
Member Sargent.
I agree with Commissioner Cook. In addition to that, I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of native planting mitigations.
I agree with Commissioner Cook and Commissioner Sargent.
Member Jackson.
It seems like a lot of trees to take down in a very nicely vegetated neighborhood. And I don't have a huge objection. You do have it documented by North Shore tree experts. I would like to see, I think it's nice for you to put in shrubs. I would like some trees, if it could be a mixture of trees and shrubs. Not all trees are going to die and be dangerous. So if you could find 1 or 2 native trees to put in there to replace, and make sure that some of the shrubs are on that slope to absorb water and prevent erosion, I would appreciate that. Chuck, your comments?
I agree. It's pretty sparse in the understory there, so I think planting shrubs is definitely a benefit to another layer in there. But it'd be a shame to lose all those trees and not have anything replanted. For 50 years down the road, when those trees will then be creating the shade of when other trees are falling as well. And also, I agree, having some stuff planted where those trees are going to be taken out will help establish some root structure in there to kind of maintain that slope, so you don't lose your slope and soil down into the road either.
Would you folks be amenable to 2 trees and the rest shrubs?
I think the main thing is to just find the trees that can thrive in the environment when we can ask, we can get it to and from the arborist, because it is quite shaded. And but there are, for example, there's a nice little smoke tree that we have some nice things on the property that we're uncovering as we clear some of the poison ivy and so forth that's there. So we are. What does it mean exactly when you say 2 years monitoring? Does that mean, like, for example, Chuck, that you come out and see what we've done, or how does that work?
Yeah, basically, for the 2 years after you put the plants in, if they fail, you'll replace them.
I see.
And at the end of that time, we'll come out and take a look at it and say, kind of see that everything has survived and that things are looking good.
It's in our interest. The slope is extremely steep, and it doesn't make sense whatsoever for us to be thinking about trying to mow, or we would much rather have it be covered with shrubbery and small trees cover and so forth. So we're all in favor.
In that lovely drawing that I did, all the mitigation bushes and now trees are on that slope.
Okay, well, why don't we then condition that you'll put in 1 to 2 trees in addition to the 6 to 8 shrubs? Does that work for you?
Sounds great.
Okay, and the shrubs would be on that slope, and along with the 2-year monitoring. Okay, then I think we're ready to move forward. Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier, moves to close the public hearing on RDA 1789 at 73 Woodward Ave.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes,
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Linda?
Charpentier moves for a negative determination for RDA 1789 at 73 Woodward Ave with the aforementioned condition of planting 6 to 8 shrubs and 1 to 2 trees on the slope with a 2-year monitoring plan for the mitigation plantings and stump grinding of that 1 tree with the exposed roots.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
yes,
Member Gradwell,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
yes,
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. You're all set.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so much for
very
your
much.
patience. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Thank
Okay, good luck with it all. Okay, next up, we have NOI 0282951 at 80 Woodward Avenue, Randy Hitchcock, for installation of a retaining wall and house connection to sewer in riverfront area, buffer zone to salt marsh, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. Do we have Mr. Hitchcock?
He should be promoting now.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can, Mr. Hitchcock. If you would give us your name and address for the record, and then just tell us about your project.
It's Randy Hitchcock. I'm here with my wife, Hope Hitchcock. We are at 80 Woodward Ave, which we just purchased a few months ago. Our current residence is 107 West Shore in Marblehead.
Okay, and tell us about your project.
So one of the first things that we noticed when we came in was that the toilet was not hooked up to city sewer. And upon investigation, talking to Public Works, we found out that the city had installed, when the betterment went in back in 2003 to 2005, grinder tanks in most of the properties, and then it was up to the individual homeowner as to whether or not they connected. Then we found out that the city was promoting these new control panels, that the whole package was set up and ready to go. I don't know why the previous owners chose not to connect. We've always felt with everywhere we've lived that city sewer is a much better deal than having your own private septic, which you have to maintain, use products. You're kind of foreclosed from having a dishwasher or garbage disposal, anything like that. So we wanted to do that, and we also noticed that anytime a FedEx truck and a UPS truck met on Woodward Ave, our cars were at risk because we're parking parallel to the road. There's a pull-off on the upriver side, so to speak, for a couple of cars, and then right out in front of our house, there was a pull-off for about a car and a half. What we're looking to do is put in an engineered wall that adds about 14 to 16 feet. And it's shown on this diagram, shaded in blue, to make parking for 2 to 3 cars. It's about 22 to 25 feet long, and it's at its outer edge, closest to the house, it's about 4 feet high. And I actually, if I could share my screen, Chuck, right, I went by a wall on Woodward as I was driving up there today that I recognized from the pictures that I had submitted to the board in the gallery of pictures. This is an existing wall on Woodward that is made from the same materials. It's the Cambridge the Cambridge Tech Armor pavers, they call it. And what it is they're manufactured bricks or blocks that have an edge on them where each one fits into the one below it. And it over a 4 foot height, they lose about 1.5 inches to 2 inches. They form a very solid, stable wall. And in between the layers of the blocks going inland, there's a grate, fiber grate mesh that goes down on the ground. More fillers added. Next row of blocks, same grate, then more fill. And so what you end up with is what was on the previous.
We're not seeing your screen right now.
Okay.
Did they see the wall?
Did you see the wall?
No.
We did not see it, sir. But you've given us a very good description.
Thank you. And you see them all over the place on any road that has a grade off to the side of it. And there are many of them on Woodward Ave. So that's the right, the wall.
Oh, there it is. Now we see it.
Okay.
This was from what they submitted.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Don't know. But moving on. So the current area that we're looking to build onto would really be an extension of what's already there. There's about a 6 foot shoulder off of the paved road, and then the grade starts to go down. And so what we would be doing is going in another, as I say, 14 to 16 feet and up 4 feet to match the road grade, and putting pea stone on the very top level, because we did not want to put an impervious surface on there. The road, the drain water that comes from any rain, we've noticed, Woodward Ave at that point is kind of tilted away from us and into the hill. And so on this, it's kind of shown where the 50 feet line is drawn. It tilts to the right, so it does not flow onto our property or onto our neighbors. The road goes down, and the water flows down into what they call, I guess, a city landing, and then flows down to the river. So it's not going to add any water to the existing water that goes down the road, because it's not going to be impervious. It would drain down, it would absorb into what we're building. And then I mean, that's about it. I don't know what other questions the board might have.
Okay, well, let's find out what other questions we have. We're going to open this up for public comment, and then we'll go through commissioner comments, and then you can respond to everything at once, okay? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 80 Woodward Ave?
We currently have 16 attendees present, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, then I'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comments.
Cook.
Nope, no comments.
Gradwell.
You're going to put filter fabric behind the wall.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Member Sargent.
I noticed that you checked off that there was an alternative analysis. I didn't see that. And any dewatering that's necessary for the sewer connection must be adequately treated before being discharged. And the existing septic system must be abandoned in accordance with Title V. And I see that you asked for 1-to-1 mitigation plantings. I would like more specificity as to the location of those plantings, and would like a 2-to-1 ratio, as well as a 2-year monitoring requirement for the mortality and mitigation plantings. Thank you.
Member Terry.
No comments.
No objection.
I'm just wondering, Chuck, do they need an alternatives analysis for this?
This would be redevelopment, so they would not.
Okay, because they did check off. I noticed the same thing as Mr. Sargent had, that they checked off that they submitted one, but there wasn't one. But if they don't need one, then that's a moot point. Okay. No, I don't have any other comments. So what's out there is, you said you were using a filter fabric. If they have to dewater, take excess water out when they're putting in the sewer system, that must be treated before discharge. And septic abandoned Title V, and planting, if you would increase the planting to 2 to 1 with the 2-year mortality monitoring. Can you respond to any of those concerns or all of them?
The 2 to 1, I was, I don't know whether I made a mistake with the square footage when I first multiplied. It seems to me, looking at it, that it would not be hard to do that. But the only, and I couldn't find them on the coastal plant list that the agent gave me, but we have rhododendrons and azalea that are doing very well there. I don't know if that's acceptable to the commission or not, but it seems to me they grow very well. It's very, very shady. There's a number of tall pines and a couple of big oaks that are just, they block everything else, so that what's in most places there is poison ivy, prickers, and I don't know what they're called on the list. But and then, as I say, the rhododendrons and the azaleas are doing very well. I've heard people mention hydrangeas tonight too. I like hydrangeas, but we wouldn't have any problem doing that.
Okay. Good. And you can put in 2 to 1 ratio, and we'll monitor it for 2 years to make sure that everything, anything that dies within that period would be replaced.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then I don't have any further questions. Where are we here? Chuck, what about you?
No, I think it's a net benefit of hooking up to the sewer system, and I think as long as you appropriately decommission the existing infrastructure for the septic, and we can certainly send you some additional plant lists to help you kind of figure out some additional potential plants and try to help you there.
Thank you. As long as I don't have too much Latin in the names, I'm good with it.
Okay. So I think what we would want is, should we move forward with this project, I think we'd like you to come in with a planting plan subject to the agent's approval as to where you're going to put these plants and what you finally decide on. And then the order of conditions would be issued, assuming that we move forward with this. That work for you?
That works for me.
Okay. Then let's move forward with that.
Are we closing the public hearing?
Yep.
Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0282951 at 80 Woodward Avenue.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes?
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Lettieri.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0282951 at 80 Woodward Avenue with the aforementioned conditions of decommissioning the existing septic system, doing the 2 to 1 planting, and a location plan for those plantings to be submitted to the agent, and a 2-year mortality for the mitigation plantings.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes?
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Sargent.
Yes.
Member Lettieri.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes, and in addition, the dewatering, if any dewatering is done, to be treated before it goes out. So if you could submit that planting plan so that the agent can issue the order of conditions, then you should be all set.
I will, and thank you.
And thank you. We love people who come in with pervious surfaces and hooking up to sewer systems. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next up, we have NOI with 028 with an unassigned DEP number for 16, 18A, 20, and 22 Beechcroft Road. Ronnie Solomon, Joe Messina, Vanessa Cepalo for connection of 3 adjacent homes to city sewer and land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal resource area, represented by Stephen Cepalo and Joe Messina. Do we have a representative?
We have Mr. Stefano and
Yes. Steve
Ronnie.
Stefano.
Oh, there is Mr. Messina as well. Okay.
Okay, names and addresses for the record, please, and then a brief description of the project.
Sure.
Steve-
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Ronnie Solomon, 20 Beechcroft Road, and
Joe Messina, 16 Beechcroft Road.
Steve Cepalo is coming in from another machine. Can you allow him, Chuck, to also be a panelist so he could say hi?
Actually, I'm on here right now. I'm just trying to get my video straightened out.
Okay. Anyway,
But
and that's
Stephen Cepalo at 22 Beechcroft Road, Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Okay, would one of you please give us a brief description of the project?
Sure. We, with Chuck's help from the commission, we got unearthed an old plan with the resources. Oh, good, there it is. And we added to the plan, you can see the color-coded sewer line extensions. The studs are already there for the hookup because my family and 6 other residents here at Beechcroft Road extended the sewer line and deep water in 2006. So John Judd did plans for that, and that's what this is. And then we are finally hooking up to the sewer. They were the last houses to do so of those 7 families. So it's been a while coming, but now we're ready. And these are the plans that we are submitting.
Okay, excellent. What we're going to do now is open this up for public comment, and then we'll go through comments by each of the commissioners and the agents. And then you can hold all of your responses until the end and respond to everybody at once, okay? All right, we're going to open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 16, 18A, 20, and 22 Beechcroft Road?
We currently have 14 attendees, and I'm not seeing any hands up at this time.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period, and we'll move on to commissioner comment.
Member Charpentier.
No comment.
Member Cook.
The only comment I have is we have 3 separate lots connecting to that under a single NOI. I'm not even sure we can do that. And for the type of work that they're doing, I don't see why each of the individual families couldn't have just done an RDA to connect to it. I'm not sure we can approve an NOI across 3 separate properties. That's it.
Member Gredwell.
No comment.
Member Sargent.
All dewatering for the sewer connection must be adequately treated before being discharged, and the existing wastewater collection systems must be abandoned in accordance with Title V. Thank you.
Member Viteri.
2 comments. The first, I echo Commissioner Sargent, the existing cesspools to be decommissioned in accordance with Title V. Second comment is on your work plan. I'd like to see the erosion control installation moved up to the beginning It's currently one of the last or second to last steps. So erosion control before any kind of excavation or other work takes place. Thank you.
At least on one, and it's implied, I think, on all the others, because it'd be the same drain layer working on all three properties, there is the indication of straw wattles for erosion control, and it is mentioned also in a work plan, which we included, and Chuck has, which says, install erosion control, straw wattles. It says the pump. It says fill and close off existing cesspools. So it's part of the plan.
It is.
I understand that.
what
It's
he was-
down, it's down on the list. I didn't know if that was a sequential list. If it's a sequential list, then the erosion control should be at the beginning.
Okay.
Okay.
Member Dixon?
No, I don't have any problem conceptually approving across three properties. We have approved across multiple lots before. The only warning I would issue is that if one of you is out of compliance, we can't give you a certificate of compliance until all properties come into compliance. That being said,
But
I'm
Linda,
ready
I
to
mean,
move.
But how would they submit this to the registry of deeds?
Chuck?
So yeah, we regularly have projects that are on multiple parcels. It doesn't need to be registered on all of the parcels. It can be, but it can also be registered on one of the single parcels from that. And then, whoever that is kind of responsible then for the other folks, being in compliance. So, as long as they're comfortable with it, then I don't think there's any reason that we can't approve it. We often will have projects that are on multiple parcels, often with multiple landowners as well. So.
Okay.
Yeah, the registry of deeds could just cross-reference any, you could record three different versions, or you could just cross-reference a single version to three different deeds.
And I want to
Okay.
share that the Public Health Department of Gloucester really likes the fact that the three properties are working together.
I'm sure they do. Okay. Then I think unless there's any further discussion, I think we're ready to move forward, Linda.
Do we have do we have numbers for this?
Oh, we do not have a DEP
No, it's
number.
gonna have to be continued
No, you're
anyway.
right. We do have to continue it for the DEP number. Sorry to hold you up for a couple of weeks. Shall we continue it September 20th? Does that
Well,
work for you?
I'm I'm a summer resident, so both Steve and Joe are local, but I'm going to go back to LA in exactly a week. There's no way you can expedite getting a number to it?
We can't. That's the state's control. We have no power over that. And I hate
right.
to tell you we're all specialists, but we cannot tell the state what to do.
But can we tell the drain layer that we've selected that he can come at least and start measuring things? Or not
I
yet?
don't have any problem measuring, but no work can be done.
No work. No work's gonna go until we get the loan from the city of
Right,
Gloucester and all
right.
that. So all that's gonna wait anyway, but I would just like to reassure him that he's not gonna incur some new rules or regulations or costs from you.
It depends on when DEP issues a number, they also have the opportunity to issue any comments. I can't see why they would have an objection to this, but I also can't
Got it.
tell you that they won't, okay? They like seeing people connect to the sewer as much as we do. So they should, I would think they would have it in place by September 20th.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's currently not showing up on their list. Oftentimes it'll show up on their list, until the checks process. If one of you wants to contact me tomorrow, I can give you the email address to contact them and just make sure there's nothing, got lost in the mail or anything like that, just to make sure that get you on track for the September 20th meeting.
Okay.
Okay, Belinda, you want to make such a motion?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028, no DEP number for 16, 18A, 20, and 22 Beechcroft Road to the Conservation Commission meeting of September 20th.
And Gradwall seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Gradwall,
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, so we'll see you in 2 weeks. Next
Great.
up, we have, okay, bye-bye. Next up, we have NOI 0282949 at 228 Atlantic Street. Scout Atlantic LLC, construction of a single-family home, associated driveway, utilities, minor grading, and vegetation removal in buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, represented by George Zamboris. Do we have Mr. Zamboris?
Yep, he should be promoting now.
Here I am.
Okay, name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, George Samboris, 17 Noble Hill Road, Beverly, Mass. I'm the engineer representing the applicant Scout Atlantic LLC. Oh, excuse me. What we're proposing that's in the NOI this evening is to construct a single-family residential house on 228 Atlantic Street. The parcel is right at the intersection of Atlantic Street and Georgine Circle, across from the entrances to Wingasheek Beach. On the southern side of Atlantic Street, we have the bank to an intermittent stream. And on the easterly side of Georgine Circle, we have bordering vegetated and wetland. Each of these areas was subject to a ORAD decision last May of last year. The lot is just under 29,000 square foot lot. Septic areas will be in the northern portion of the lot. The buffer zone occupies the southern portion of the lot and bisects the middle of the lot as it exits Georgine Circle about 3/4 of the way up the parcel, the property line. The dwelling is try to fit as much of the dwelling outside the buffer zone as possible. It is necessary to have about 497 square feet located inside the buffer zone, which is what Chuck is pointing out right now. That's the one piece of pervious that we have in the buffer zone. The two other areas is the walkway leading from the dwelling to the gravel and stone driveway. That area is 132 square feet. And then a portion, that walkway is a pervious paver walkway with stone storage underneath it. In addition, on the southern side of the dwelling, there's a patio that a corner of that patio is inside the buffer zone. That itself is also a pervious paver patio with stone collection underneath it. There is a water service that will be coming up from the water main to be installed on Atlantic Street. That's under a different NOI that's already been approved. That service will continue up through the buffer zone, avoiding the trees in the area that we're not disturbing, and connect to the house. There are 2 trees that we do have to remove. There's one along the edge of Georgine Circle, right next to the E. Up a little more, Chuck. Right about where the Y is in driveway, right in that vicinity. It's shaded, it's hard to see in the PDF. And the other one was one that we thought was outside, but it's actually inside the buffer zone, right by the 0 on the 30 inside the dwelling where it says foundation elevation. Each of those are 8-inch maples that will need to be taken down the project. All the others we're trying to any others in the buffer zone we're avoiding. We will be doing replication for plantings. We're installing approximately 5 trees and 32, I believe it's 32 shrubs and additional plantings. They'll be locating on each side of the driveway along the edge of Georgine Circle. and also along the easterly side of the proposed dwelling and on the walkway leading to the house. We will be installing sedimentation barriers along Atlantic, along Georgine Circle, and also along the southern portion of the lot to prevent any possible sediments to enter into the resource areas. We'll also be installing a construction entrance right in the vicinity of where the proposed driveway entrance is, up off of Georgine Circle. Yes, right there, Chuck. The portion of the driveway inside the buffer zone will be gravel and stone. And there'll be a post and rail fence that will be installed from the driveway leading down along the edge of Georgine Circle to the common property line between Lot 3 and Lot 4. In addition, the mitigation to the plantings, we plan to infiltrate the entire roof surface, 100% of it. We'll also be capturing, harvesting rainwater to water planting, so it's a combination of both systems. Did provide drainage calculations to show that the entire site, not just the buffer zone, but the entire site, we've mitigated, the mitigation we're providing results in the flow of rate of runoff and volume of runoff that equals existing conditions. I think that's it. Probably best to see if you have any other additional questions.
Okay, what we're going to do is open this up for public comment and then go through commissioner and agent comments. And then you can respond to everybody's comments at the end. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm going to open this up for public comment. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 228 Atlantic Street? Use your raise your hand button or press *9 on your smart device.
Currently have 15 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comments other than I'm really pleased with the number of plantings that are being done here. I think it's awesome.
Member Cook.
No comments.
Member Gradwell.
No comment.
Member Sargent.
I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings. And if any dewatering needs to be done, it must be adequately treated before being discharged.
Member Terry.
No comments.
Member Jackson.
I also like the plantings that are going on. If you're removing 2 trees in the buffer zone, could we have replacement trees and a total of, I think it looks like we would need about 500 square feet of mitigation. You've got your rainwater harvesting, which is great. Does that all work?
Would you like me
Sure.
to respond to that?
Yes,
Madam
please.
Chair?
Yep, yep. If
Actually,
you're on.
actually of all the plantings, we're doing 5 trees and the total area is approximately 1,200 square feet.
Oh, that's right. I do see you doing the trees. Okay, excellent, excellent. Love it. Okay. Sounds good. I have no further questions. Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0282949 at 228 Atlantic Street.
And Gradwell seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes?
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
And Member Jackson.
Yes.
Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0282949 at 228 Atlantic Street with the aforementioned conditions of 2-year monitoring of the mitigation plantings and treating any sort of dewatering prior to discharge.
Gradwell seconds.
call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Redwall,
yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. You're all set.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for all of those plantings. Okay, bye-bye, you too. Next up, we have NOI 0282950, 160, 158R, 154A, Essex Avenue, Upper Banjo LLC for construction of a road, utilities, drainage, and dam reconstruction, installation of a dock and float in buffer zone to BVW, bordering vegetated wetlands, land under a water body, and inland bank, represented by Joel Favazza, Seaside Legal Solutions, PC.
Good evening again. For the record, once more, my name is Joel Favazza. I am an attorney at Seaside Legal Solutions, 123 Main Street here in Gloucester, here on behalf of
And-
Upper Banjo LLC. Yes.
And before you start, let's please consider this a brief introductory meeting. I know I would like to have Mr. Gulla's expertise on this project as well. It's a big project. I don't see any way of finalizing it tonight.
I will be as brief as I can. With all due respect, it's a big project, but the the Conservation Commission jurisdiction really isn't all that big. So I'll go through it as briefly.
That's accurate.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. I was gonna throw my screen up and we'll get moving. There we go. So, brief area description. We are at 160, 158R, 154A Essex Avenue. The lot is mostly vacant and wooded. A large part of the 25 acres is the Upper Banjo Pond in the north. There's an isolated wetland in the southern portion and a very small BVW in the southwestern portion. Upper Banjo Pond is already retained by an existing dam. Here's some photographs of the mapping tools we have at our disposal, which you're familiar with. So brief history on the conservation side of things. This property was delineated back in 2011. And then it was updated again in 2019. We filed an ANRAD with this commission and you approved it in May of 2019. So we have an order of resource area delineation that is still in effect. So there shouldn't be any question about the wetland resource areas on site. Those have already been determined by you previously, and we're just riding on those to get this moving forward. Again, really quick, these 3 blue arrows point to the 3 wetlands on site, the biggest being the pond itself. Then you have the wetland in the center and the southwestern one just coming over the property line in the left bottom corner of the map. So the work we're looking to do that requires Conservation Commission approval is to primarily repair and reconstruct the dilapidated dam that retains Upper Banjo Pond currently. We also need permission to construct portions of the new subdivision road called Southwest Drive and to run utilities and stormwater management apparatuses for the overall development. And there's also some small recreational things like a dock, gangway flow, and some pedestrian access paths. I want to be clear that we are not here tonight to permit any of the individual house lots, and that if you were to issue an order of condition for what's being requested, it would not permit any of the buffer zone construction of single-family homes or otherwise. It would only permit the road, utilities, stormwater, etc. To give you another, example of how this is a big project, but the Conservation Commission portion of it really isn't all that big. So the things in yellow are what's jurisdictional to you. Everything in gray is not a resource area or a buffer zone. And you'll notice that we put almost everything we could in that area to keep it out of resource areas and buffer zones there too. About 80% of the road is outside the buffer zones. And I want to be clear that this is almost entirely a buffer zone only project. The super small amount of resource area work is the seasonal kayak float that'll sit in the pond. And then 2, the temporary coffer dam that'll go in for the existing dam repair work. Quick little chart showing you that there'll be a temporary impact to about 2,200 square feet of land underwater, which will be, again, the area between the proposed coffer dam and the existing dam, but that is temporary in nature. And once the dam is finished being repaired, the coffer dam comes out and that land underwater will become land underwater once more. There is 20 linear feet. I'm gonna think of a little John Madden thing out. there's 20 linear feet of what's considered bank currently that is going to be abandoned. So it's an alteration that's actually for the benefit, just going to be abandoned. And then land underwater, again, talking about there'll be two basically screws that screw down into the mud seasonally to hold the kayak dock inside the pond itself. And those will have less than a total of 1 square foot impact each year. So the biggest issue is the dam reconstruction, but this is a limited project. So even the biggest component of your purview is actually by the wetland regs, a limited project, which includes specifically the maintenance, repair, and improvement, but not substantial enlargement of structures, including dams. And so it says you can actually basically jettison performance standards should you need to. However, we don't really need to in this instance, because we're able to kind of do this in an environmentally sensitive manner regardless. So again, we're not enlarging it, so we meet that standard. And we are doing this dam work as part of an order from the Massachusetts Office of Dam Safety. And that again goes back to this standard saying that you have to think about availability of reasonable alternatives and any minimization of adverse impacts. And so basically there's an order from the state saying you have two options. One is you can rebuild the dam as we're proposing to do, or two, you can remove the dam and eliminate Upper Banjo Pond. As you may know, Upper Banjo Pond is a man-made pond that was put together, I think, by the Cape Pond Ice Company. It was originally an ice pond, and then it was later used by the Russia Cement Company, who had property down across the street at the lower Banjo Pond area. Obviously, as I've indicated in our filing, my client's hope is to do the necessary improvements to save the dam and to save the pond. He is not looking to lose the pond or to lose the dam, but there is no option in which he can do nothing. He either has to rebuild this dam or he has to get rid of this dam. Stormwater, again, this is a big stormwater system, but you have the good fortune that this whole stormwater management system was prepared in accordance with the necessary standards. It was reviewed by a third-party engineering firm hired by the city during the planning board permitting process. It meets all the goals as far as removing at least 80% of total suspended solids in all conditions. And it has all the peak flow calculations to make sure that we maintain or reduce post-construction peak flows. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that all the boxes you need to check for a stormwater system, we've checked. And if you don't believe me, you can rely on the third-party reviewer the city has already hired and has already agreed that this meets those standards. So then we have buffer zone work, which is the road construction, drainage, and utilities. So again, you can allow for this work because there's no direct impact to the resource areas. You'll see from the plans, we have significant erosion controls prepared. There are temporary BMPs to be installed while the permanent BMPs are being put in. Barriers around all material stockpiles, you name it, we got it. There's also a detailed roadway construction sequence in your packet, and that is done intentionally to help preserve the buffer zones themselves to the resource areas. And then you'll also notice that if you look at the actual design of the whole property, as I mentioned, we try to do as much as we could outside the resource areas and their buffer zones. And where you see that 20% of the road kind of cut through a buffer zone, it's because it's just a geological pinch point. The only way to get that road down to Essex Avenue is at some point to kind of swing through a buffer. Again, we're not doing any of this work inside the resource areas themselves, but we do come through buffer zones for about 20% of the road itself. So you have buffer zone work for site amenities. Again, this is like the dock, the viewing platform, and walking trails. As you can see, it's a little, 3 to 5 kayak dock. The ramp you see and the float itself is all going to be seasonal. So this comes out, and there's probably a pin here and a pin here down into the mud each year to kind of hold it in place. And the pin comes out when the dock comes out for the winter. So again, you actually are encouraged by the Wetland Protection Act to provide recreational access. Again, we are buffer zone only. The walking trails themselves are designed to avoid mature trees and also to connect to existing trails where possible on the adjoining properties. The kayak dock is going to be flow-through decking. So this is really going to be, pretty minimal stuff here, but it is within buffer zone, and the dock itself is on the resource area. So it does require an order of conditions to do that work. And then the last thing I'll touch on is just general considerations for the buffer zone itself. So again, this is just a quick little look at the an open space plan that we gave the planning board. Everything in green is going to remain in a natural state. Everything that is green with hash marks is going to be regraded, so it will be interrupted, but then it will be restored or replicated in a different manner. And again, none of that is within a resource area itself, just some of that is within buffer zones. Yeah, so basically what I just said, over 75% of the locus is unaltered. And I want to use some big numbers here because they're important. We are proposing 191 square feet of open space. Almost 90% of that 883 figure is going to remain natural, undisturbed. So it's not going to be open space that trees are going to be cut down and replanted. That's going to be the trees and the bushes that are there now are the trees and the bushes that stay there through this project. That is well beyond what any of the applicable regulations via zoning, local wetlands, or state wetlands requires. And when you tally it up, even the largest number required, which actually comes from zoning, believe it or not from the wetland stuff, we are providing 344,000 square feet more common open space than is required by the strictest measure, which would be the zoning ordinance in this case. Lastly, I just want to quickly touch on a letter that you received from a abutter, from Camille Vicente at 158 Essex Avenue. This is her property highlighted in yellow. She had some concerns about vernal pools, despite the fact that her entire backyard is a cleared part of this same forest within 50 feet of a wetland area. She has concerns about our clearing for the road, she's concerns about amphibian migration and location of walking trails. And I just want to touch on those super quick because I know you guys got it in writing. I'll make sure I address those. So first off, unfortunately, her letter kind of misstates the jurisdictional issues. She claims that the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance creates a buffer zone that doesn't exist. The Gloucester Wetland Ordinance does create buffer zones beyond what the Wetland Protection Act has, but it's only for resource areas set forth in what's called section B1 and B2, and then a different one for section B8. Vernal ponds are in section B9. There's no independent GWO buffer zone, which is the basis for a lot of her analysis in her letter as to what needs to go where. She claims that the BMPs must be set back 100 feet from the certified vernal pool. I'm just showing a quick picture scaled to the plan that from the edge of the vernal pool to the edge of the grading to the BMP, not even the BMP itself, but the grading is over 100 feet from that vernal pool. So to the degree that that is a requirement, we've complied with it. She was also an issue about the cluster of certified vernal pools. Again, those other vernal pools are to the south of the property. And so again, nothing that is going on, the other vernal pools basically extend this way and that way. And so nothing that's being proposed up here is going to impact whatever cluster of vernal pools, this particular one might be a part of. The ability for amphibious life to hop from one vernal pool to the other will still be allowed to happen because we're not proposing to do anything between the vernal pools. And so that's kind of that issue, right? The last thing is the walking paths. First off, as I mentioned, they're designed, especially the one you see here, this is designed to connect to an existing walking path on adjacent property. And I think this is a good time to, consider the idea that people protect nature when they're able to enjoy it. People who are able to enjoy nature understand the beauty and the treasure of it. And honestly, if a walking path can't be, carefully traversed near wetlands, then someone needs to go tell the trustees of the reservation, Greenbelt, the city of Gloucester, and tell everyone to get out of Ravenswood, get out of the same field in East Gloucester, because apparently you can't have a walking trail anywhere near a wetland. Those things are rife with walking trails near wetlands that, again, do fine because the people in there are actually being stewards themselves and making sure that these wetlands they come to enjoy are being protected. So, and then there's some other issues that I want to get into that were about planning board jurisdiction. She also requested some conditions as to individual lots. Again, that's not part of this NOI. I'm not asking for anything relating to the lots specifically. It's just the stuff you see in yellow. It's rebuild the dam, put in the road, and put in the drainage that, again, has been thoroughly reviewed and approved by city experts. And so that's basically my conclusion here. The biggest part of this project is the dam, but the applicable regulations call it a limited project as it is. The rest is all typical buffer zone work that has been, again, designed and reviewed and made sure that it's not going to have any impact on the resource areas to which it's adjacent. So you're welcome to do as you see fit with this hearing tonight. Obviously, there's people who are going to raise some issues tonight, but from where I stand, it's a big project, but it's not a big Conservation Commission project. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pavaza. Okay, we're going to open this up for public comment. We'll then move on to commissioner comments, and then you'll have the opportunity to respond to everything at once. Okay, is there anyone in the public who wishes to comment on the project at 160, 158R, and 154A Essex Avenue?
We currently have 13 attendees, and we have one hand up, Camille Vicente.
Okay. Ms. Vicente, name and address for the record, please, and then your comments.
Camille Vicente, 158 Essex Ave. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Well, there's no argument that the dam needs to be rebuilt as it's in poor condition with a high hazard status after decades of neglect. Approving a drainage plan at the expense of the certified vernal pool is not a viable solution. The NOI focuses largely on the dam, yet ignores this vulnerable wetland, which has been documented as a vernal pool breeding habitat since the ORAD in 2011. The project, as currently proposed, would have significant detrimental impact to the sensitive ecological resource, permanently altering nearly half of its woodland buffer with tree removal for yards, homes, drainage, and regrading. The CVP serves as a key design point for the proposed stormwater management, altering the natural flow of water and the shaded woodland canopy. The project must be modified to honor both the letter and the spirit of our environmental protections. While I rely on your expertise for clarification, it is my understanding that this is a certified vernal pool, and the project needs to have a stormwater report that addresses the fact that this is an outstanding resource waters. The vernal pool is certified in prior to this NOI and should therefore submit an updated stormwater report, as it neglects to address standard 6, which says that the BMPs must be set back 100 feet from the CVP. In this case, 2 BMPs, 2 and 3. Favaza showed us a map, but that was showing from that water line of, an average point of water in this vernal pool, that it does not show the delineation that you approved in the ANRAD back in 2019 or 2018. The delineation in that 100 feet should be shown from that sort of jagged area around. There was no delineation about smaller water areas in between. The vernal pool has a specific outline that is the delineation of that vernal pool, not this little tiny bit of water, because that changes throughout the year. The CVP is a DEP defined vulnerable wetland, both as a vernal pool and as part of a vernal pool cluster, as it's within 400 meters of one or more VPs, in this case 3. While that is out of jurisdiction, the DEP puts this together to help communities better protect vulnerable wetlands from stormwater pollution. And the DEP advises avoiding any new stormwater impacts and preserving undisturbed habitat around clusters of vernal pools will foster the continued viability of these ecosystems. The CVP buffer is protected through the Gloucester Wetlands Ordinance, and it is clear that this resource and its buffer should be protected to the maximum extent, amplifying the Wetlands Protection Act and using the more stringent protocols that the Wetland Ordinance has. Also bringing this back to, this is a cluster development. that get special permits with a clear purpose to encourage use of land in harmony with its natural features with a design that best preserves open space for conservation. Looking at the most vulnerable parts of the land. What is that? That is the certified vernal pool. And they negate the buffer zone entirely. I can get into ways that this project would be better by reducing the right of way by 10 feet, moving impervious areas closer to the street, farther from the wetlands, which, I think the Wetlands Protection Act does bring up, and that if conservation deems it appropriate, they could say that that is something they can do. And while that might not be the purview now, we have to look about this in the entirety of its plan, and seeing what, conservation does have. They want impact on, what a cluster development is designed to do. Further, it's written in the project narrative that the intent is to do, quote, the right thing for the neighborhood and its localized ecology. The right thing would be to preserve the most vulnerable part of this land, and that is the certified vernal pool and the buffer around it. Thank you again for your careful consideration and exploration of these concerns. I do have a couple other questions unrelated to the vernal pond, mostly about the 2 beaver lodges that are on the pond. One that is kind of close to where the dam is. I don't know whose purview that is, and wondering if the dam will affect that. And then also in raising the water level of the pond, how will the embankment between my property and the pond be reinforced? It does raise the water significantly, and I don't know how the dam is designed, but if a still hole gets blocked, does this put my property at risk for flooding, as it's not much higher than the proposed water level? Thank you again.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to comment?
We currently have 13 attendees still, and there are no other hands up this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period and we'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
I think there's an awful lot here to consider, and I'm not ready to vote on it.
Member Cook. Member Cook.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take it all in. There's a lot here that to take in. The issues with the vernal pool up there. I'd actually like to do a site visit, go up there, take a walk, take a look at the dam, and see what we're gonna do. I know we're probably being asked to be under the gun because the ORAD's date is, what'd you say, October of this year? But I'd want to see a site visit and go up and take a look for myself.
Redwall.
I think that a site walk would be very appropriate for a project of this size. I don't see how we could approve a project of this size without having a site visit.
Member Sargent.
There's no question the dam needs to be replaced. But other issues are there should be shutoffs from the stormwater discharges in the event of a petroleum spill. And the certified vernal pools are presumed to be significant for the protection of wildlife. Road salts, pesticides, and herbicides have lethal impact on obligate species that depend on vernal pools for their existence. Therefore, stormwater should not be discharged to the vernal pool. The stormwater report says that stormwater will be discharged to the vernal pool through BMP 3 and 4. And there should be a general prohibition on the use of road salts, herbicides, and pesticides. Also, any dewatering during construction must be adequately treated before being discharged. The recreational dock, gangway, and float must be constructed with materials that are non-toxic to the aquatic environment, and there should be a prohibition on the use of motorized watercraft. There needs to be a summary of the loss and alteration of vegetation within the buffer zones so that the commission can consider the magnitude of the alterations and the significance of the project site. in order to protect the interest of the Wetland Protection Act and the Gloucester Wetland Ordinance. And I'm looking forward to reviewing the DEP technical comments. Thank you.
Member Materi.
I have a question about, it looks to me at least 3 houses are located significantly in the buffer zone. I know we're not reviewing the individual lots yet, but we will be reviewing the individual lots. 3 of them are almost completely within a buffer zone, so I'm wondering if those can be reconfigured or removed so that they're not totally in the buffer zone for, you know, future consideration. I'm looking at lot 1, lot 2, and lot 22. I'd want a condition that all pedestrian paths be unpaved. There's a kayak path and there's a nature path, so there's at least 2 extensive paths throughout the site. I agree it's a limited project for the dam repair, but that's not going to be for everything. And there's still other parts of the project, considerable road construction, installation of a dock, stormwater, things like that, that are not going to be under that limited project designation. So I think that's only applies to part of our review. It looks like part of the dam reconstruction extends onto a neighboring property. I'm not sure if those people have consented to that work or if they're listed in the NOI or anything. So I'd raise an issue of whether or not all the land subject to the NOI is fully under your control or permission to have the work done on it. Concerning the concrete channel that you say is going to be abandoned, what does that mean? Is that going to be removed? Is that area going to be restored to you know, a grassy or pervious bank? I assume the purpose of the regrading sections in the open space is for the stormwater retention purposes. So please confirm that. The abutter raised a question about an outstanding resource water. I'd like to know if that is actually the case, if there's documentation of that too. I suppose, I'm not sure if that's just because it's certified vernal pool and those things coextensive or not, but documentation of that would be great. I agree, this is a big project. There's a lot to take in. I agree we should do a site walk as well. Thank you.
Member Jackson.
I think the previous commissioners have been very well spoken, and I heartily agree. It's a big project. We need a site walk. We need to do more exploration and investigation.
Madam Chair, I'm comfortable tonight just touching on one thing and then scheduling the site walk and addressing the rest of the comments at a future meeting, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Yeah, so the only thing I want to just speak about with relation to that, the vernal pond, the vernal pool, and the existing delineation, you know, the reality is we have an existing ORAD that has no vernal pool on it. Again, my client is really trying to do the right thing here. So we are showing you what has since been certified as a vernal pool, and we are complying with the regulations. I want to be very clear that vernal pool is basically trapped from any of the work that we're trying to do. This vernal pool is not going to know about the BMP that's on the other side of a ridge from it. I want to be very clear that, again, the ORAD that was approved by this commission and is still valid doesn't even show it. We are trying to be as transparent and, you know, as transparent as possible and do, again, the right thing and say, yeah, you know what, this has since been identified. And even though we have an ORAD that doesn't show it, we're still going to comply with the requirements for it. So it'll be very clear that, you know, a lot was said tonight about that vernal pool and about where the buffer zone to it might or might not be. Again, the only legitimate buffer zone is to the wetland itself, and that is shown on the ORAD you've approved. We've decided to include the vernal pool, again, to be as transparent and forthcoming as possible, because we do believe this project, you know, doesn't have anything to hide and does meet the standards. That being said, if you want to schedule a site visit, that's fine. It's always a tricky time to get in there. Again, nothing is built right now, and so you need to be prepared to wear long pants and sleeves to deal with briars and prickers, sturdy boots. Those of you who are unstable may want to bring a walking stick is, it's got a lot of topography on it, and to get up to where this pool in particular is requires hiking up through the entirety of the site to get to it. And then, like I said, you come to a ridge, and then you come back down toward this pool. You'll see how this pool is basically disconnected. So I'm happy to show you how it's disconnected, but I don't want anyone to think they're gonna be able to park their car anywhere near this and kind of, peek out at it. It's gonna be a hike. And so I'm sure everyone understands that when they schedule this.
Okay. All right, so it looks like this is going to be continued for a site visit. I will leave it up to the applicant and the agent to arrange a site visit and communicate with commissioners. And we will continue this. Do you want to continue this to September 20th?
If we think that we can get people out to the site next week, I'd be happy to come back and talk some more on the 20th.
Okay, why don't we give it a try and see what happens?
Okay.
Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282950 at 160, 158R, 154A, Essex Avenue to the commission meeting of September 20th.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Cook. Member Cook. We lost him. Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Sherman. Oh, sorry. Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Villa. Yeah. Member Jackson. I'm calling everybody.
We got it. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Okay,
night.
we'll see you at the site walk. Thank you. All right, next up, we have NOI. Do we have an unassigned DEP number, right, Chuck? For 5551 Essex Ave?
No, this one does have. This one does have
does?
the number. Yes, 2953.
29553.
2953.
Okay. No. Okay, we have NOI 0282953 at 549, 551 Essex Avenue. Jeff Frazier for construction of a duplex retaining wall and gravel parking area within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, represented by John Judd, Gateway Consultants.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. As noted, for the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing Jeff Frazier, who is here tonight to construct a new duplex dwelling on 551 Essex Avenue, along with a proposed retaining wall and gravel parking area. Thank you, Chuck, for bringing up the drawing at 549. So presently there's an existing dwelling. Those of you that know the corner of Overlook Ave and 133 Essex Ave, you can see that multifamily dwelling that Jeff owns. He has some apartments there, and he'd like to build 2 more rental units there for some additional housing that's needed in the area. And obviously he would be doing that to be accessed from Essex Avenue as shown on the plan. There was formerly a garage that is sort of half outlined in halftone there, and we've included that in the impervious area calculations, which is shown on the right-hand side of the plan that shows the existing dwelling just over 1,000 square feet. The former garage was just over 660 square feet, for a total of impervious area of over 1,719 square feet. The proposed dwelling would be 1,248 square feet. So the net increase in impervious area would be 585 square feet. And we're looking to mitigate the plant 1,170 square feet, which is 200%, as a buffer zone along the wetland boundary, as you see behind the proposed dwelling. So that's essentially it. There's an existing gravel parking area that is presently exists where the proposed dwelling would be. So it's all in a disturbed area, and the entire proposed dwelling would be in that packed, sort of a recycled asphalt packed parking area right now. So That is the proposal. It's more or less a redevelopment of an area that is presently used as packed gravel, and there was a former garage, as you can see on the plan. So that's a very brief description. I know everyone's tired, and I can answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. We will go through public comment and then commissioner comments, and you can respond to everyone at once.
Sure.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 549, 551 Essex Avenue?
We currently have 8 attendees, and there are no hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comments.
I got a message that Mr. Cook's PC died, so he is out for the rest of the evening.
Okay.
Member Gradwell.
No comment.
Member Sargent.
Yes, the proposed parking areas are too large. They're larger than the buildings they serve and result in unnecessary encroachment into the stream buffer. The newly proposed parking area for 549 Essex Avenue is larger than the building, as well as the existing parking area for this building. Reducing this parking area would create less impact to the stream buffer. The proposed parking area for 551 Essex Avenue is also larger than the proposed building itself. By lessening this parking area, the building could be moved further away from the stream and allow meaningful mitigation within the stream buffer. Also believe it's quite disingenuous to take credit for the lessening of impervious surfaces for a long abandoned garage. Any dewatering must be adequately treated before being discharged, and I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality and mitigation plantings. Thank you.
Member Materi.
No comments.
Member Cook, looks like you've returned.
I did. I missed John's section, so I'll recuse from this.
Okay, Member Jackson.
No additional comments. Chuck?
I share the concerns of how close this is to the wetland there and the intermittent stream. I'm curious too, there's no plantings along the other proposed retaining wall and gravel access there. It seems like we're really losing any kind of buffer to the wetland in the eastern or the right-hand side of that plan there.
So what I would ask is if we could continue this, and I would like to huddle up with Jeff to see if we can tighten things up to address what both Chuck and Dave have concerns with. I see the concerns, and I do see some opportunities to maybe tighten up the parking. I know Jeff definitely needs parking, but let's see if we can come to some kind of solution on this and not rush it at the late hour here. But I definitely hear what you're saying, and I'd like an opportunity to maybe talk to Jeff about that and maybe tighten things up a bit.
May I add one comment?
Sure.
Sorry. I'd like to see some containment around the propane tank too. I don't know if it's on there. I can't really tell if it's too small on there, but some sort of spill containment or containment sort of type of structure, just because that's located in the buffer zone.
Okay, yeah, that's pre-existing, but we can certainly look at that. You talking about some kind of a containment system that you would see around suspended oil tanks, or?
Yeah, like a raised curb or something.
Okay. Yep, we can look at that.
Propane's a gas.
Propane is a gas. It's not going to need a
It's not gonna
containment
spill.
system of that. What it needs is some concrete pilings around it to protect it from the cars.
That's there. That exists. You can see those on the plan. We do have bollards around it right now.
Okay.
So there's no issue with that. There are bollards that surround the propane tanks.
All right, I'm good then. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, then will you be ready for September 20th?
Yeah, yes, I'm gonna talk to Jeff tomorrow morning and see if we can maybe tighten things up based on what everyone's saying about the buffer zones, particularly behind the retaining wall, and also what Dave has mentioned.
Okay, thank you for those considerations.
Sure.
Linda?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282953 at 549, 551 Essex Avenue to the commission meeting of September 20th.
Gradwall seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Gradwell.
Yes.
Sergeant.
Yes.
Member Terry.
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Judd. Have a good
Okay.
evening. And next we have NOI 0282952 at 728 Washington Street, Snug Harbor Condo Trust, reconstruction of existing dwelling and installation of a grass swale in riverfront area, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and buffer zone to coastal bank. And I take it this is you again, Mr. Judd? Yes, it is. Mr. John Judd, representing from Gateway Consultants, Inc.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'll be brief. This is a project that was put in front of you, a very similar project in 2020. And at that time, the project was withdrawn. It's basically a reconstruction on the same footprint of an existing dwelling as shown on, thank you, Chuck, he's sort of delineating with the cursor, which is just on the exterior portion of the 100-foot buffer to coastal bank of Lobster Cove. There is, again, no increase in impervious area here. The reason it was withdrawn, there was some issues with there's two other detached condos here, and one of the unit owners wanted some other items addressed, and they've worked that out architecturally and reduced the footprint that was proposed previously. So it's essentially working within the same footprint, and as part of that agreement with the neighbor, they wanted to see some of that runoff treated as it goes down from the driveway across in between the two lower units. So it's proposed that a erosion control sock be lining a grass swale that would help infiltrate the runoff that comes down the driveway, which doesn't exist right now. So really the only project is reconstructing the upper dwelling and on the same footprint. And that's really the extent of the project. Thank you.
Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to comment on the project at 728 Washington Street?
We have 7 attendees and there's one hand up, Paul Nasser.
Okay, Mr. Nasser, name and address for the record, please, and then your comments.
Yes, my name is Paul Nasser. I live at 102 Wheeler Street here in Gloucester. I've known the Olivers, the owners of this property, for many years. They're devoted to Gloucester and want to make sure that they do the right thing. They've worked long and hard on the plans that are being submitted before you today. And I think if you looked at them with great detail, you'd find that that this project stays within the foundation that was existing in the building. They've been asked to do many things, and they've accommodated not only you all, but the neighbors that they've had to deal with as well. So I just wanted to say to the commission that I'm wholeheartedly behind this project and really support the Olivers in their endeavor to build a new home there.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Chuck, is there anyone else?
There are no other hands up at this time.
Okay, I'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to commissioner comments.
Member Charpentier.
No comment?
Member Cook.
No comments.
Member Gradwell.
No comment.
Sergeant.
No comment.
Member Terry.
one question, the grass swale, is this going to replace what's noted as a 4-foot wide common path that's noted on the plan? And is that currently an impervious surface that's going to be changed into the grass swale? Second question is, where does the swale empty to? And third is my comment. So I'd consider this a redevelopment in the riverfront area. I would add conditions that are consistent with the criteria for that in 1058-5. Thank you.
Sure. If I could, Madam Chair, is there any other comments or
Sure.
should I address that?
I have no additional comments, so, and I'm the last one, so go ahead.
Okay, so just to answer Mr. Altieri's inventory's comments, the swale is within the existing deeded access, and again, it's not intended to replace it. It's intended to allow for some infiltration. So it's only 6 inches deep. It's 4 foot wide. It's going to basically allow for a more defined water path that will both infiltrate and allow it to dissipate where it goes now, which is down into Lobster Cove. So there's really nothing more than that. It's just to define it and improve what's there now, which is scouring. So it's just the intent is just to follow that swale cross-section detail that's shown on the plan. So it's you can see it's at the end of it is going to be well short of at least 20 feet short of the actual concrete walkway that goes on top of that granite retaining wall at the top of the cove bank. As far as the riverfront, again, this is a redevelopment. We're just working within the same footprint of existing. So there's really no alteration and no change and no increase in impervious area at all. So I think that was those are the comments.
Okay, that answer your questions, Mr. Viteri?
So the common path was noted as 4 foot wide common path isn't like a walking path. It's just sort of a scoured out area right now.
Well, it is by deeded. It's a deeded path that allows the other units to go through there. But so this again, it's 4 foot wide with a 6 inch concave, inverted concave to it. So it just allows that water. So what we're trying to do is stabilize something that is already being used as a walking path, but put in something that's, vegetation that's going to form a good root base, and continue to be a walking path, but a swale at the same time. So they can carry their kayaks, canoes, and pedestrian access. So.
Okay.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, I think we're ready to move forward.
Charpentier public hearing on NOI 0282952 at 728 Washington Street.
And Gradwell seconds.
Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Yes,
Redwall,
Yes,
Member Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes.
and Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0282952 at 728 Washington Street.
and Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Cook,
yes,
Redwall,
Yes,
Sargent,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. You're all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Now,
Night.
you too now.
Good night, John.
Okay, next up, we have certificates of compliance. Chuck, are both of these ready?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, then let's move them as a group, Linda.
okay, Charpentier moves to approve RCOC 0282851 at 179 Hesperus Avenue and RCOC 0282547 at 132 Wheeler Street.
Gradwell seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Redwall,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
Member Jackson.
Yes. Okay, Linda, you got one more motion in you?
I do. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gradwell
And-
seconds with reservation.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Gradwell,
Yeah.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Jackson.
Yes, and thank you all, commissioners. It was a tough meeting.
You
Much
did a great
appreciated.
job, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Good
All
night.
right, bye-bye,
Night.
good night. Have a good
Everybody safe.
evening or whatever. Okay, bye-bye.